Attention, please. Can you please upstand, I think, for the chaplain's prayer?
You can say the prayers.
Heavenly Father, we come before you this evening as this meeting commences. We want to commend the meeting to you. We ask you to guide, to help, to grant wisdom to all the participants. We just pray that everything that will be done tonight will be done for the good of the council. We just pray that everyone will flow together and we will have your mind here in this meeting today. In Jesus' name, amen.
You need.
Good evening, everybody. And can I say welcome, everyone, to this meeting of Hertsmere Borough Council, including those in the public gallery and watching online. My name is Councilor Alpha Bird Collins. I'm the mayor of Hertsmere, and I will be chairing this meeting. Before we continue, please can I ask everyone to make sure that your mobile phone is turned off or switched to silent. Thank you. We have fire evacuation procedures. On hearing the alarm, please leave the building immediately using the nearest available exit. There are exits at the rear, back there, and sides of this chamber. Thanks. Do not under any circumstances use the lift. The assembly point is in the civics office car park, in the area next to the roundabout. You should not re-enter the building until it is known to be safe to do so. Do we have any apologies for absence or lateness, please? I have received apologies for absence from Councilor Abhishek Shagdev and H. Green and Graham Alexander. Those are the apologies. Any other apologies?
Mr. Mayor, we've got apologies from Councillor Paul Hosson-Jones, and we've got an appointment of lateness for Councillor Lambert.
Thanks. Please, can that be noted? You will know, members, that robust but civil debate is the essence of democracy. The respectful conduct in the chamber is of key importance to the good reputation of our council. I will be keen to ensure that debate is civil and timely throughout the evening and will ask your support in this respect. 2 points in our procedure rules to avoid any misunderstandings by members. Step 1, if you rise on a point of order to speak, I will immediately ask you to identify which procedure rule or law has been broken in your opinion. If you cannot answer this question to my satisfaction, I will ask you to sit down, as it is not a point of order. Step 2, if you wish to make a point of personal explanation, this only applies if you have already spoken in the current debate and feel that a member has misunderstood something that you said in that debate. If you rise on this point, you must have spoken in the debate. I will ask you to state specifically which part of your speech has been misunderstood, and if you cannot answer this, I will ask you to sit down. As before, we will be using the electronic voting system. Councilors, can you also please remember to switch off your microphone when you have finished speaking? This allows the webcast camera to automatically move on to the next speaker.
Mr Mayor, I would like to propose a reorder of the agenda tonight to bring opposition business item number 17 straight after item number 6. Thank you.
Is there any seconder?
I rise to seconds, thank you.
Okay, yes.
You put it to the
Okay.
vote stage.
Yes, can we start the debate?
No, it goes to the debate.
Yeah.
So, can you ask?
Mr Mayor, it's item number 17, opposition business. And the title is United Against Hate, Condemning Incitement and Promoting Cohesion.
Can you not- Tell the meeting
Yeah.
that's the case.
Yeah, is that the case, everybody? Is it agreed?
Can I have a recorded vote on it? Can I have a voting?
Can we have a recorded vote for this? And
No,
then
we are having a recorded vote. And so
I mean, it was moved and thing, you know? Yes, Councilor Newmark. Anybody wants to talk and then they have to talk firstly to the chair and then you don't just murmur. You have to put up your hand and thing and then I'll recognize you, please. Newmark.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Sorry, we didn't quite hear the precise details of the proposal. I think we're, in this group, are generally, given the exceptional circumstances around this particular piece of opposition business, supportive. It wasn't entirely clear exactly where it was proposed to move it to in the agenda. We would be supportive of it being inserted after public questions and members' questions, but not before those items.
Yeah. Thanks ever so much, Councilor Newmark. That would be after item number 6. Yeah.
right, the voting's now open. Say the voting's now open.
Okay, excuse me, everybody. Now the voting is now open. Yeah.
The motion is carried.
As far as I can see, the motion has been carried. Now we'll move over to declaration of interest, please. Is there any declaration of interest to be declared? Okay, now we'll move over to the next item on the agenda, and that is agenda item number 3, the minutes. The minutes of the meeting of the council meeting held on 14th of May, 2025. These have been circulated. There can be no debate on the minutes. Only accuracy may be questioned. May I sign them as an accurate record? Okay, okay. That will be done later on. I'll sign it later on. I will sign the meeting, the minutes later on. Okay, we'll move over to agenda item number 4, announcement by the mayor. I would like to thank all of the organizers of events I have attended in the first 2 months of my term. I have been very honored to be part of some incredible celebrations marking significant achievements, such as the Hackrow Awards for those who have turned their lives around, and the 100th anniversary of L Street Studios, which had an official visit by His Royal Highness, the Duke of Edinburgh. I appreciate the work of all the groups who have invited me to attend these events, and I look forward to learning more about our local groups and community for the remainder of my term. I would also like to thank all the teams, participants, referees, and Arsenal Football Club for making the Mayor's Charity Football Tournament a huge success. This year's event was the first to include a women's-only competition, which proved to be a great addition to the event. The event raised over £1,400 for my chosen charities: Hearts Young Carers, Carers in Hearts, and Learning Through the Arts, which will make a real difference to their work. The details for the Mayor Civic Service are being organized, and I hope to invite you all in the very near future. I would sincerely enjoy seeing as many of my colleagues there as possible. We also mark the sad passing of our past mayor, Councilor Alan Plansy. We shall have a number of short tributes in memory of Councilor Alan Plansy, starting with the group leaders. Yeah, Councilor Sullivan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Colleagues, today I rise to pay tribute to a truly remarkable man, Councillor Rabbi Alan Plansy, MBE. Alan was, above all, a gentleman, quietly spoken, yet unwavering in his commitment to this community. He looked after us all, not for recognition, but because it was simply who he was, a man of service, of humility, and of heart. He took immense pride in his role as councillor. This wasn't just a position for him, it was a purpose. His family has shared with us just how much it enhanced his life, how deeply he cherished the opportunity to serve, and how this chamber, this borough, became a meaningful part of his journey. It is bittersweet for me to reflect on only knowing Alan as a colleague for 2 short years, and yet in that time, his kindness and quiet wisdom left a lasting impression. I was honoured to receive my civic award from him right here in this very chamber during COVID. Socially distanced, but he still made it feel special. That moment will stay with me, not just for its significance, but for the warmth and grace he brought to it. We will miss the dulcet tones of his Scottish lilt, his ever-present sense of humour, and his gentle cheekiness that could light up a room and lift our spirits, even in the most serious of meetings. Alan, thank you for your service and your friendship. You enhanced our lives, just as we know this role enhanced yours. May your memory be a blessing to us all. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Councilor Sullivan. Yeah, the leader of the council, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I already paid extensive tribute to the late Councillor Rabbi Alan Plansy at Cabinet and a number of events since then, so I will keep my remarks short this evening to give others the opportunity to pay tribute. But you know, as we've been told, as so many people have said, he was quite literally a larger-than-life figure, and those lilting Scottish tones will be deeply missed, both in this chamber and beyond. As a religious leader, Councillor Plansy was less a preacher and more a builder, which might strike you as a strange thing to say. But perhaps the thing for which he will be most singularly remembered is his role in building this area's Jewish community from a few dozen families into what has become one of the largest and most thriving in Europe. Together with his late wife Miriam, who so tragically passed away just days after him, they touched so many lives. As a civic leader, as a councillor on 3 local authorities, an alderman, a police chaplain, a university chaplain, a teacher and a broadcaster, he loomed large over our local landscape. He was a pioneer of interfaith activity before it came the fashionable thing for everybody to do. Representing the chief rabbi at national services, he became as comfortable in a cathedral as he was in his own synagogue. He was also notably the first non-Muslim faith leader to visit Boreham Wood's local mosque days after it opened. And I remember after that visit, he quipped that there were huge theological similarities between Judaism and Islam, but the big dividing issue for him is that unlike in the synagogue, in the mosque, a post-worship dram of whiskey is strictly off the agenda. And on the topic of his love for whiskey, he served most recently as a member of the licensing committee under Councilor Adacia Kaza. Licensing was never really his thing, and I was always perplexed as to how his group leader persuaded him to join that committee, and I suspect that he was probably led to believe that alcohol premises licensing might have involved the odd opportunity to taste the merchandise. Yet seriously, whilst it was well known that we had our political differences and our robust exchanges in the chamber, he was uniquely able to separate that from his personal life and personal relationships. And I wanted to end up with a story that I've never told before, but I think just sums it up really well. It was a relatively recent story, actually. We had quite a heated exchange one evening across the chamber at a full council meeting, and we didn't leave on the best of terms. Very early the next morning, actually, my phone rang, and it was Miriam on the line, which surprised me. And she said rather cryptically, when he got in last night, Alan said that I should call you and check you were okay, but he didn't explain why. I expect you had words. We went on to have a really lovely conversation, but she was really keen to emphasise that whatever he might say, whatever he'd said the night before, whatever he might say the next time we meet, there was a genuine, deep human level of concern underneath it all. His legacy will continue to live on in this area and be talked about for generations to come. May his memory be for a blessing.
I'll move over again to Councillor Shenton. Would you like to pay a tribute to?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah.
I bumped into a mutual friend of Rabbi Plancy's yesterday, and he told me about his unique and huge contribution to the community. Alan Plancy wasn't just a retired rabbi. He built that community and was accordingly revered and much loved by it. I've only known him since I became a councillor in 2023, but he always treated me with great courtesy and friendship. He even once suggested I cross the floor to join his group, an offer I politely declined. I was brought up in Elstree, and in those days the Jewish community was really quite small. Its huge growth is in large part due to Rabbi Plancy's hard work and character. Not just making the town welcoming to new Jewish families, but also helping to develop warm relationships between people of different faiths and none. He worked assiduously to improve interfaith understanding and cooperation. Rabbi Plansy was a great public servant to the people of Boreham Wood and beyond, as both a county councillor for 12 years and a Hertsmere Borough Council for more than 10. When his party fought a challenging election 2 years ago, Rabbi Plansy bucked the trend and held his seat, a testament to his personal popularity, born out of many years' hard work for all the people of Boreham Wood Brookmeadow. He also served our community as mayor on 2 occasions. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Shenton. Yeah, Councillor Amron, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I rise also to pay tribute to Alan. Councillor Rabbi Alan Plansy, MBE, was a much loved and respected pillar of both Hertsmere residents of all faiths and the wider Jewish community, who he worked for tirelessly. Alan took his public service very seriously and had the ability to connect with everyone, bring people together, as was proven with his work with Interfaith, was always, for me, warm and honest, and always found time for others, even at his own expense. As most of you will know, he became a rabbi in 1976 at Elstree and Bournemouth Synagogue, which he grew into a huge community, entered the political arena post-retirement as a county councillor in 2009, and then as a borough councillor of Bournemouth Brookmeadow from 2015 until his very sad recent passing. Citing his achievements, he was twice elected as Mayor of Hertsmere, became an honorary alderman upon his retirement from County Council, and was awarded an MBE in the King's 2023 Birthday Honours List for political and public service. I will always remember Alan personally for his kindness towards me, his wonderful Edinburgh accent, and his very mischievous sense of humour. Alan, I believe, leaves behind a legacy of integrity, compassion, kindness and service to others, and he will be greatly missed by a great number of people in Hertsmere and beyond. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Amron. I see Councillor Bright. Yes, I recognize you, please. Okay.
Thank you very much indeed, Mr. Mayor. Well, look, Alan Plansy was a character, and he was larger than life, and that's why when he passed, it made it that much sadder, because there's some people who are larger than life and you just think they're going to go on forever, but sadly they don't. Like many others, Alan and I knew each other many, many years. His wife, Miriam's sister, used to babysit me more than 50 years ago when I was a little one. I saw her in the House of Mourning. I'm still a little one, but I saw her a couple of weeks ago after her sister passed. Alan married me and my first wife, you know that, back in 1991. He introduced me to the Queen in 1994. All stories for other occasions. And I filmed him on a trip to Auschwitz in 95 for a documentary I was making commemorating the 50th anniversary of the E-Day, and I'll never forget standing by the Lake of Ashes as Alan conducted the memorial prayer in front of an assembled group. When he retired from the ministry, he was 68, and most people, other than those who become councillors, most people think it's time to retire. And I picked up the phone to Alan, and he was in America. I didn't know at the time. He was in America, and I woke him up from his sleep. And I said, Alan, you're never going to believe what I'm going to ask you to do. I said, I'd like you to become a county councillor. And he said, do you think I can do it? And I said, yes. And he said, in that case, I will. And that was it, 30-second conversation. A 30-second conversation which led to 12 years of service at Hertfordshire County Council and a decade at Hertsmere, where, as people said, he became the first and only person in its history to have served in the mayoral chair twice. He worked ceaselessly as a local councillor, and he did more than anyone that I know to enhance the reputation of the Jewish communities of Hertfordshire through his actions and by his words. They weren't used to too many Jews out beyond Hertsmere that way in Hertfordshire, and he went out there and people really got to understand about the faith and the people. He was respected amongst his peers, outpourings of sadness on hearing his passing from all faiths and backgrounds, all political parties, and that's testament to Alan's legacy. Everyone I spoke to, they talk about the laughter also in the following days after he passed. Remember how they made him smile. He was a quick-witted man who used humour and his velvety Scottish brogue to diffuse sometimes difficult and often sad situations as he would encounter both as a communal leader and a local councillor. He was gregarious, he was generous of spirit. He was someone to share the good as well as the sad times with, and I shall miss both my friend and my political ally. I know we all will. May his memory and that of his Miriam, his wife, the powerhouse behind the throne, who also died and was buried within 7 days of his passing, may their memories be as a blessing. You really, really won't see their like again. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Bright. Yes, Councillor Cohen, I saw you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, colleagues. As we are all hearing, and we know, Alan was a man of great wisdom, integrity and compassion, whose decades of service to our council, our residents and the wider community leave a lasting legacy. He was not only a dedicated public servant, as we're hearing, but a pillar of respect, guidance and calm counsel to all his colleagues across the political spectrum. On a personal note, I had the privilege and honour of knowing Rabbi Plansy since I moved to Boreham Wood in the 1980s. True to his generous and embracing nature, he welcomed me and my family with warmth and care, inviting us into his home and into the heart of the community. In those early days, I was very involved in his baby, Boreham Wood and Elstree United Synagogue, and I witnessed firsthand the tireless dedication of both Alan and his dear late wife, Miriam, as they nurtured and grew our community. Its transformation from a small backstop in Jewish community terms to the largest community in Europe is in no small part due to their love, energy and vision. Nothing was ever too much for them. In his retirement from the synagogue, I was honoured to call him a colleague within the Conservative group here in Hertsmere, where he continued to lead by example, bringing Jewish values into civic life and always acting with decency, humility and thoughtfulness. We mourn his loss deeply, and I miss terribly a unique, special man and friend. May his memory and that of his dear late wife Miriam be for a blessing. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Councillor Cohen. Due to time factor and thing, I would like to thank to all of you, the speakers. Can we please stand for a moment's silence in memory of Councillor Alan Plansy? Thank you. Please be seated. Thank you, Councillor Newmark. Can I see councillors indicating to speak? Is there anything? Are there councillors who wish to speak with regards to some?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. At our annual council meeting, which was obviously a civic occasion rather than a political occasion, it wasn't the appropriate moment to pay tribute to Councillor Bright as the outgoing leader of the principal opposition Conservative group. I did make it clear at that meeting that we would put aside some time today so that appropriate tributes can be made. And, you know, Councillor Bright, Morris, it's a somewhat remarkable feat. Decades of civic leadership. Not many people are able to sustain the energy and enthusiasm for local government that you have done over the years. But of course, our connection goes back a long way before I was a councillor. I recall working collaboratively on issues with you, like the establishment of the Austrian Borough Eruv and the initial work that was done to ensure that Boreham Wood would enjoy its first Jewish primary school. But perhaps it was not long after I became opposition leader, a year or two on when the COVID pandemic hit, that we worked together most closely. Those meetings in which Morris, myself, the other group leader and the mayor sat with the chief executive in this chamber with the rest of you in the little boxes on Zoom up on the screen there were surreal. During that period we had to have some quite chilling conversations. I remember talking about provision for mass morgues and burial facilities. But even during conversations like that, Morris was able to inject his own unique brand of humour to lighten the tone of those conversations. And I think we all appreciated that they did make some of those discussions slightly easier to get through. But it was during that period when I saw the kind of leadership from Councillor Bright that proved when it really matters, we can all work together around this chamber for the greater good, because he didn't have to progress the leadership of the council on a three-way cross-party basis during that time. And as group leaders, we met more regularly even than the cabinet itself. But I think that he knew instinctively that it was the right thing to do. And of course, Councillor Bright is also renowned for his legendary work in the screen arts, the film and TV sector, and remains a significant figure in that local world. We've always worked together to promote and protect Elstree Film Studios, the jewel in this council's crown. And that's why after I took over the leadership and the new administration was formed, it was a natural decision, despite our political differences, to retain his involvement and expertise on the board of EFS. So it's somewhat odd to sort of pay tribute to a member who hasn't retired, remains politically active, and thank goodness is very much still with us. So I do look forward to continuing to work collaboratively and having the odd robust exchange with Councillor Bright whilst he enjoys the view and perhaps a somewhat quieter life from the backbenches.
Thanks, Councillor Newmark. I see one or two councillors trying. Yeah, Councillor Sullivan, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councillor Paul Richards, firstly, may I extend my group's thanks to you for your work and enthusiasm, both as Deputy Leader of the Council and Leader of the Lib Dem Group. It's not an easy task to put yourself above the parapet, something I'm learning as each day goes by. I look forward to carrying on being part of your climate change panel, a panel that I know will have long-lasting benefits for all of our residents. Thank you. It's an honour to stand here today and pay tribute to someone who has given so much of himself to public service, Councillor Maurice Wright MBE. Maurice has served as leader of Hertsmere Borough Council for many years defined by his tireless commitment, strong leadership and deep-rooted passion for doing what is right for the residents of Hertsmere. But Maurice is more than a leader. He is a great friend, a trusted sounding board and a constant source of support, not just to me, but to many of us. Personally, I'm incredibly grateful for the way that he's mentored me, encouraging me to train, prepare and grow into the role that I now hold. His belief in others is one of his greatest strengths. And of course, anyone who knows Maurice knows that his sense of humour is second to none. He brings lightness to moments when we all need it most, whether it's breaking tension in a tough meeting or simply making us laugh at just the right time. Maurice reminds us that public service, whilst serious, is also about people, about being human. But let's be clear, this is not a retirement speech and it's certainly not a eulogy. Maurice is still very much here, still part of the Hertsmere family, still working hard and fighting passionately for what's best for our communities. Thank you, Maurice.
Thanks, Councillor Sullivan. I'll move over to Councillor Richards, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We don't often see eye to eye, but I rise to pay tribute, recognise and acknowledge Councillor Maurice Bright on the occasion of his extraordinary tenure as Conservative Group Leader. Whatever your politics, Maurice has defined the shape of this local authority over the course of 16 out of 50 years. Not bad. First elected in 1999, it's no small deed to have been the longest serving leader of Hertsmere Borough Council from 2007 to May 2023. A time which critically included the COVID lockdown, surely the most testing time for Hertsmere residents in the history of the borough. And a time that brought the best in community leadership across the chamber and within the small group that were legally allowed to meet here at the offices to oversee the local authority response. And I thank him for his close working relationship with the current leader and my predecessor. It's also worth noting, despite some hiccups over the last year or two, the sea change in councillor behaviour in the chamber, as well as on the campaign trail, is in no small part down to the agreement of Maurice to meet with the other group leaders regularly and the Hertsmere Police Chief Inspector, Mark, and then Ashley, and which has toned down the rhetoric overall. Awarded MBE in 2018 for services to local government, a absolute stalwart subject matter expert on most things Elstree, film and TV, and still obviously serving on the board, Elstree Film Studios, Deputy Chair of LGA. I've always enjoyed the sparring, despite our political differences. Well done, Maurice, and all the best, Lynette. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Richard. We'll go to Councillor Cohen, please. Are you having? Yeah, Councillor Amron, please. There we go.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah.
I want to say a few things. So I'll talk first of all about Councillor Paul Richards. So in my previous role in the Lib Dem group, Paul and I rarely saw eye to eye regarding council matters, but outside of the group actually got on quite well. We often met on the bus or the train and had some really quite good conversations. And in fact, Paul spoke to me following my resignation in March and said he was sorry I'd taken the decision to quit and hoped there were no hard feelings. So for that, Paul, you're a genuinely decent guy. Thank you. Whilst you've been in your role, you've thrown yourself into the role of group leader, deputy leader of the council, whilst having a full-time job, which is, I've realised now, is not easy. You've worked tirelessly in advocating for a greener Hertsmere, improving Hertsmere's landfill rates, increasing EV charging points, addressing concerns regarding potholes and bin collections, and working with others in the group regarding the barrel bikes. Your interventions demonstrate a deep commitment to putting residents and environmental issues first, and residents of Hertsmere, particularly in Bushy, have much to thank you for. Now that you've got fewer council meetings, I hope you will find more time with your family and the time to continue advocating for a greener Hertsmere. Thanks a lot, Paul. And over to Councillor Maurice Bright, MBE. So, I can speak on behalf of my missing colleague Graham Alexander and my other colleague Mr Mayor and the Hertsmere First Group, and would like to give thanks to you as you've served as a councillor since 1999 and leader of Hertsmere Council from 2007 to 2023. I'd like to thank you for your dedicated service to the borough and the residents of Hertsmere. Maurice, you've got, as everyone has said, a really sharp intellect, a great and very quick-fire sense of humour, boundless energy and a true passion for everything Hertsmere, and have always made decisions with the best interests of Hertsmere at the forefront. Whether as a leader or opponent, you've always been very approachable and found time to chat, whether in the chamber or when we've met in Bournemouth Retail Park. And you can always be relied on, as other people have said, to inject humour into pretty much every and any conversation, and I trust that will continue. Most importantly, don't stop doing what you do best, which is advocating for residents and continuing to promote Hertsmere and its film and television heritage. Thank you very much.
A lot of beautiful tributes have been said about Councillor Maurice Bright. Councillor, have you got anything to say with regards to the tributes that have been said?
My new leader made it very clear I had a very short amount of time, so I'm going to completely ignore that. No, I had to check my pulse, didn't I? Because Councillor Newport calling me Maurice and being nice to me. Honestly, I'm thinking, is this a tribute or is it a eulogy? I didn't know. Right, it's one of those days. It's one of those days. You know, we talk about the humour, but you know, and he mentioned about the meetings we used to have. As a journalist, Maxie will know this. It's called gallows humour. They have it in emergency services. Sometimes the only things that get you through the day when you see the sorts of things or do the sorts of things you do is gallows humour. And I had it as a journalist and later on as well. And, you know, it just helps get us through the days some days. I waited. People say, why did you wait so long to stand back from this? I waited so long because I'm one of those few people that wanted my children to grow up so I could spend less time with my family. And now that they have, I was in Tesco's, as I often am, as you know. I was in Tesco's last week, and the Councillor Carser Senior came up to me. It's amazing what you learn from looking in people's shopping trolleys, but that's another story. And he came up to me and he said, Maurice, he said, I didn't realise I thought you were much older than you are. I said, oh yeah. How old did you think didn't he? How old? We were by the frozen peas. He said, how old do you think I am? He said, 70, 75. I said, 70 or 75? Do I look? I've spent a fortune on face cream. I said, do I look 70? He said, no. He said, but I've just read like your CV and everything you've done and you fitted so much in. I went, oh, he's such a flatterer. So bless him for that. Look, very briefly, what does it look like 18 years or 16 years as leader? The day I became the leader in October 2007, Sajida told me the chief executive resigned, the former chief executive stood back and two ago, and on my way to my first cabinet meeting, Sajida said, Councillor Bright, we have £1 million invested in Iceland. Remember? That was the first meeting. I said to her, get it back, even if we have to get it in frozen haddock. Do you remember I said that to you? And we did, most of it. So what does it look like? Let me give you some figures. 18 years as group leader, that's 6,429 days. 1/3 emails. Over 1,000 briefings, working with hundreds of members of excellent staff. 176 meetings of the executive, now the cabinet. 123 meetings of the council. 120 meetings of Elstree Studios. More than 2,000 minutes of leaders' reports, and boy, didn't that feel like it for all of you. 24 executive members, 18 mayors, 18 deputy mayors, 16 civic dinners for me, 17 local government association conferences, 9 council opposition party leaders, 6 prime ministers, 2 monarchs, 2 MPs, 2 new sound stages at Elstree Studios, 2 chief executives, 3 children, 2 homes, 2 wives, too many family occasions I missed because I was at too many meetings, 1 new knee, 2 recessions, 1 international pandemic, more than 230 of our people in Hertsmere who died from COVID, and the meetings, as Jeremy discussed, where we would discuss where we would put bare bodies if the numbers of deaths became too overwhelming, so lots of hugs for my children when I'd go home at night. And there was much, much more. There were good times, difficult times, creative and productive times, there were lovely times, and there were lonely times. I offer thanks to all members of all parties, past and present, who worked with me, my party, my group, for the good of our towns and communities, our peoples and our residents. I thank officers for the assistance they gave me, their guidance, their support, their attempts to get one past me, keep me on my toes, did well. And Mr. Mayor, as I look round at this chamber, at those with new roles, new leadership, new mayor and deputy mayor, new political party, new commitments and new ideas, I'm reminded of the poem, All Things Bright and Beautiful. Well, you've heard more than enough from Bright. Now I suggest we focus on the beautiful, talented, diverse council that we have, and we make the very best of what might be our last years. Thank you very much indeed.
Thanks, Councillor Bright. Now we'll move over to agenda item number 5, and that will be questions from members of the public. 6 questions have been received from members of the public, and the responses have been published with the agenda. I will ask each member of the public, if present, whether they have a supplementary question. Can I remind people that it does have to be a question on the topic and response and not a statement. When I call your name, please come up to the mic and press the black button near the mic to turn it on. It will go red. You will then be able to ask your supplementary question. When you finish, please press it again and to turn it off. You won't be able to ask anything further, so please return to your seat. The first question is from Fleur Albrecht about South Min's data center. Fleur, do you have a supplementary question on the same topic? Your question must relate to your original question or the supplementary reply.
Thank you, Councillor Oakley, but your response doesn't really answer the question. You removed this site from the local plan due to its proximity to South Mim services, and because you knew it was not acceptable to local people, yet now it will be home to one of the largest data centres in Europe, with industrial-scale diesel backup, significant landscape disruption, and with a major infrastructure implementation. Do you understand, to many residents, it appears that the decision to allow this development through was less about planning merit and more about political
convenience. Please come to the question, please.
Especially given the leader of the council's very public
Can you come to the question, please?
Yes, of the application. So, who can we trust to protect our greenbelt in light of this council's wanton destruction of the insignificant greenbelt in the so-called name of grey?
Thanks, Councillor Oakley.
Thank you for your question. I took this site out of the local plan because I didn't think it was suitable for housing because it was directly next to South Mim services. This application, of course, was for a data centre, which is something entirely different. In the intervening time, the site was then, if you like, reclassified as grey belt. And so therefore, the planning application, as considered by the planning committee, had to use this as one of the reasons why they were going to approve the application. Now, I think it's worth noting in terms of data centres that this relates directly to consumption, and that residents want their parcels delivered overnight by Amazon, they want their Ocado deliveries, they want to use social media ad infinitum. And all of these things require data centres. The government has recognised this and designated data centres as national infrastructure. So even if the planning committee had taken a different view on the application, I can assure you that this application would have been called in and that decision would have been overturned. And we've seen in the last week exactly that happening on another site not a million miles away. So in terms of who can you trust with the green belt, of course you can trust us with the green belt. We take it extremely seriously. If you look at what I did with the last local plan, then I took out a great number of greenbelt sites, including the one that you're talking about, whereas the opposition were very keen to concrete over that site for housing.
Thanks. The next question. The next questioner is let me see you. Yeah, Ms. Balamere, please.
Good evening. Thank you very much for your detailed response to my email to you. It is really good reading about all the good work the council are doing. I recently met with you at Appleford Park, and I wondered if you could please tell everyone on the plans therein about this. Thank you.
Yes, Councillor Oakley. Councillor Myers, pardon me. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you to Bala for her question. So with the stuff that's going on at Aberford at the moment, we've got a public consultation going out in the very near future. We're looking at a £1 million investment into Aberford Park. A lot of that money will be earmarked directly for the brook, because I know that people are very upset about the state of the brook. I've been down there, and it actually looks quite good at the moment, but I think that's probably because of the recent rain. But there is a huge amount of money that will be going into the brook. In the short term, we've been trying to get aerators into the brook.
I think I've got a point of order, because Councillor Myers is mentioning a leaflet that was political, and we've got a by-election next week, and he's criticising what was put in a political literature and on social media, and I think that's electioneering.
Okay. Thanks so much. I think, yes, you can continue, I think, but...
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah,
and as I was saying, we've been trying to get aerators in to re-oxygenate the water down at the brook, which isn't in any leaflets. I've just so you're aware, Councillor Cohen. That hasn't been possible because we are unable to get them in the heat. They're all hired out via particular companies, and we can't find one. So we're re-oxygenating that water at the moment with things that look like giant bath bombs. And the fountains will be back on in the very, very near future. We've got a new contractor in place, and they're visiting on the 21st of July. We're hoping they'll actually be on before that, because I know a lot of people locally are desperate for those fountains to be back on. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Bala.
You're welcome. Okay. The third question is from Mr. John Byrne about AI growth zones. John, do you have a supplementary question on the same topic? Your question must relate to your original question or the subsequent reply. Wait, Mr. Byrne? Oh, okay.
He's not here, no.
Okay, since he's not here, then we'll move on to the next one. Okay, the next question is from Herman Chef about supporting and planning enforcement. Herman, do you have a supplementary question on the same topic? Your question must relate to your original question or the supplementary reply. Yeah. The floor is all yours.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Oakley, for your response. My family and I have been impacted over the years by our neighbour's property overlooking following a planning permission and a planning department that hasn't cared for our welfare. My neighbour, the enforcement notice has just passed, and yet no action has been forthcoming from the enforcement department. Would the portfolio holder for planning agree to meet with me urgently to discuss my 2.5-year-long issue with planning and enforcement?
Can you respond, please?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, of course, I'll be happy to meet with you and to understand more fully what the issues are and hopefully move forward.
We also have a question also from Mr. Archie Hatfield about on the barrel bike scheme. Archie, do you have a supplementary question on the same topic? Your question must relate to your original question or the subsequent reply. He's not, okay, that's great. We're moving forward very fast then. Okay, then we'll go over to the sixth and final question. It's from Yotam Hafkin about promoting economic growth. Yotam, do you have a supplementary question on the same topic? Your question must relate to your original question or the subsequent reply. Where's Mr. Yotam? He's unavailable. "17 questions received in advance. As there are questions from across the council, they have been ordered as set out by the Constitution. As usual, members, the responses to your questions have been published with the agenda. As such, we will move straight to the supplementary questions in each case, should there be any. Can I remind people that it does not have to be a question on the topic and response, and not a statement. If your supplementary question is on an entirely different matter, I will rule it out of order. 30 minutes are allowed for councillor questions, and any other reach within that time will fall. The first question is from Councilor Sussman, which relates to local plan calls for sites. Do you have a supplementary question on the same topic?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Thank you. Councillor Oakley, you failed to answer my question, which merely asked for one number. Before, when I've asked you a question, you told me you didn't have a Scooby. Well, I've got a Scooby. You told us at the policy review meeting on the 5th of June that you had just received the list of sites that had been put forward, and that was 6 weeks ago. So it's fully incomprehensible that you cannot have answered my question. You chose not to answer my question. My supplementary question to you is not when will we see a local plan, as you are kicking that can up the road, or when we may have a members' planning panel meeting, as you're also avoiding those at any cost. But my question is, which again I have asked you on 4 separate occasions, is simply that of the 82% of Hertsmere's green belt, what percentage is still classified as green belt and not grey belt? Thank you.
Councillor Oakley, can you respond?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councillor Sussman, you are demonstrating your lack of knowledge on the planning process, particularly in relation to the local plan. Now, I have told you on numerous occasions that things cannot be done overnight. Every single greenbelt site, which is, or rather is in the current draft local plan, and indeed has come forward from the call for sites, has to be assessed. It doesn't happen overnight. We have just gone through a 2-month procurement process for our master plan for town centres, but also to commission all the work that will assess these greenbelt sites. I'm not sure which bit of that you don't actually understand.
It's me asking you the question, I think.
Yeah. Okay, I think she has given some explanation. Okay, we'll move over to the next question. Is from Councillor Butler, relating to wildflower planters. Do you have a supplementary question on the same topic?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. How is the council's tree strategy that was passed at full council coming along, especially with cherry trees? Councillor Myers, thank you.
Yeah, Carol.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I'm glad you asked this. So we've hit our 10,000 tree target so far this year, so like smashed that out of the park. And it didn't require any massive cherry trees with fruit the size of cannonballs. Thank you.
Amazing.
Yes, we'll move over to the third question, and that is from Councillor Bright about the cabinet member for planning. Do you have a supplementary question on the same topic, Councillor Bright?
Funnily enough, now you mention it. You know, he said a few minutes ago about robust exchange. No. It is a bit of an old chestnut, and I'm not mentioning trees because Councillor Butler didn't declare an interest just now in his question. It's an old chestnut, but with a point of concern. Yes, Labour promised the residents of Hertsmere a local plan within 6 months of coming to power. That was May 2023. Okay, we are now in July 2025. We have no plan. We've accepted, council have put money into various consultation. Does the leader of the council accept that despite that decision to spend what's not an insubstantial amount of money on various consultations, that it's unlikely that there will be a local plan in place within the lifetime of this administration, and that by having no clear housing numbers, we face an increasing number of speculative applications that threaten to decimate our green belt? And with all this is happening on Councillor Oakley's watch, can the leader explain why he still has full confidence in the cabinet member, although doing very well on the buses, has clearly driven the planning process off course, and we are currently failing this borough as a consequence?
Thanks, Councillor Bright. Okay, then we'll move. The next question is from, pardon me, I do apologize. No, it's nothing to laugh about and other things, you know. To err is human. Isn't that so? Yeah. Okay, Councillor, can you respond? No, Councillor Oakley. Councillor Newmark. It's Councillor Newmark to respond.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I thought there was some cherry picking going on there. Is it likely? Yes, I believe that it is. Why do I have confidence in Councillor Oakley? Because under her leadership, we have a planning operation in this council that countless voices across the sector, including in recent weeks 2 leading KCs, tells us is one of the best in the country. Under her leadership, we delivered a draft local plan in 9 months. Yes, it was 3 more than we'd hoped, but we never knew how little work your administration had actually done since shelving your own disastrous Regulation 18 draft. Under her leadership, we've integrated planning and transport policy. And because of that, she saved the 84B bus. And whilst others sent emails, posted on Facebook and took officer briefings, she did the legwork and formulated the actual solution that saved the routes threatened by the closure of the 601. All you and all the group opposite ever do is repeat your single, transferable and utterly unfounded criticism based on a manifesto pledge. And you know why you do that? because you had the chance to deliver this and you singularly failed. You had the chance, after you lost the elections, to engage constructively with the new process, but you boycotted the meetings, and once again, you failed. Now, you have the chance to present alternative proposals, fresh thinking, new sites, and different ideas. And yet, once again, you fail to do that, and you repeat the same old mantra. Councillor Oakley has the plans, she has the policies, and she delivers the results.
Okay, we'll move on now. We'll move on now. Okay, we'll go to the next question. Is from Councillor Allen, relating to King George's Splash Park. Do you have a supplementary question on the same topic?
Very closely related. I'd also like to ask about the Millbrook Green play area in North Bushy. Later we'll discuss the NSIL funding for that project. But could the portfolio holder tell us where we are on the planning application?
Councillor Newmark, can you respond? Councillor Myers, pardon me.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I had an update on this yesterday, actually. So we've hit, where have we gone? The planning application has been submitted and verified. It's subject to any statutory comments, scheduled for the planning committee for a decision in September. Works will then be ordered, and there's an 8-week lead-in for supply for the actual play equipment. So the build will be built to order. So yeah, if all progressing very, very well, should be September for the planning. Thank you.
Okay, the next question is from Councillor Clapper, which relates to update on Newberry's car park. Do you have a supplementary question?
Yes.
On the same topic?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, I do. As the local member representing Radlett, I must stress how concerned both residents and local businesses are about the future of Newbury's car park. This is not just a piece of land, it is essential to the daily functioning and long-term viability of our high street. Radlett High Street is the only high street in the entire borough that has not yet returned to pre-pandemic trading levels. Easy access to parking is critical, not just for local residents, but for visitors who come from Shenley, Boreham Wood, and right across Hertsmere. I'm getting to the question, I promise. To support our shops, cafes, and services. We know that Alden and Parish Council have submitted a credible offer which would recoup the original costs and, importantly, retain the site as a car park. Can I therefore have firm assurances that no decisions will be made behind closed doors and that proper consultation with the local community will take place? And will Cabinet commit to prioritising long-term benefit to Radlett's residents, businesses and wider high street economy over any short-term financial return? Thank you very much.
Councillor Newmark, can you respond?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I can see some uncomfortable faces opposite, and I think I understand why that is. Because it was your group that created this problem. It was your group that spent £700,000 of public money on consultative processes and got nothing in return. It was your group that caused the dissonance between the expenditure and the best value duty that this authority has to the public, something that this administration takes very seriously. In fact, the only group in this council that have ever voted to take a decision to dispose of Newbury's car park was your own. That's why many of you are sitting uncomfortably here this evening. I can assure you and members of the public, as I did at the excellent public meeting that you organised a month or so ago, where I made many new friends, that this public asset, an asset of all residents across the borough, not just residents of Radlett, will receive fair treatment. Not special treatment, fair treatment. It'll follow the same process that every other public asset in this borough undergoes. There won't be special treatment of one particular asset just because it happens to be sited in Radlett. Those days are long gone. We have an obligation that we take seriously to deliver best value for every single resident of this borough. We'll do this in the same way as we assess and deal and process every other asset management decision. We've made it clear, and I've made it clear, that any plans moving forward will have to be absolutely predicated on the starting point that current levels of parking will be retained. I take very seriously the point you make about the issues faced by Radlett High Street. And I think if we're able to retain current levels of parking and also add a new offering to that site that will create additional reasons for people to use that high street and additional footfall, it seems to me common sense that that is something we must look at and take seriously. As we reported to Cabinet a week or so ago, the process being overseen by BNP Paribas, in which expressions of interest were requested, recently concluded. We've gone back to a number of the interested parties to seek clarification on their particular bids. And as soon as there is something to report, you have my assurance that that will be reported, and when there is a decision to be taken, it will be taken following exactly the same process that every other comparable decision has ever followed in this council.
Okay, thanks. Thanks ever so much. Okay, the next question is from Councilor Graham Alexander. Unfortunately, he is in the air. Are you going to proxy on his behalf?
No, Councillor Alexander didn't offer any other questions. Thanks.
Do you have a sub?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That's fantastic. I mean, it's really been quite detailed and proactive. 17,500 flyers going door to door, 700 responses have been received. In contrast, despite the overwhelming public interest in Newbury's car park, including a petition signed by over 3,750 people, we've seen no such visible consultation. I've conducted a ward-by-ward analysis of car parking provision across Hertsmere using population data and public sources. The findings are stark. Radlett and Aldenham have the lowest amount of council parking per resident in the borough, and even when private parking is included, we still have by far the fewest total spaces per capita, just one space for every 38 residents. That's compared with 1 per 16 in Boreham Wood and 1 per 12 in Potters Bar. We're also the only area without supermarket car parking, and we are the least well served by public transport, and yet our only significant car park is under threat. So as per your previous answer to me, Councillor Newmark, I will ask, will the administration commit to the same standard of consultation for Newbury's as has been provided for Aycliffe, including direct mail?
Councillor Clapper, can you come to the question?
This is my question. Will the administration, that's a question word, will the administration commit to the same standard of consultation for Newbury's as has been provided to Aycliffe, including direct mail, banners and public meetings? And will you guarantee that no development will result in a reduction of the number of spaces provided, along with any new demand accommodated in addition? Because this isn't about special treatment, it's about fair treatment, parity in process and parity in parking provision. Thank you.
Councillor Newmark, can you respond to Councillor Clapper's?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. You know, what a shame. On one hand, we have Boreham Wood's Cowley Hill ward, one of the wards in this part of the country that scores most highly on the indices of public deprivation. We're investing in a community facility for the many underprivileged, deprived, economically, socially, in terms of health opportunities, residents of that area. In contrast, we have Radlett, an area in which those same constraints in the same way do not apply. It certainly doesn't score highly on the indices of multiple deprivation. And yet the group opposite use that investment. They use a question on the Aycliffe Pavilion in the Cowley Hill ward. They hijack it to talk about the first world problems where people park their cars in Radlett. You know, there's a different highway code that seems to apply in Radlett. I had to visit Radlett, actually, 5 days in a row last week. I don't have any problems finding somewhere to park, sometimes in the car park, sometimes on street. The problem I had was there seems to be this strange interpretation of the highway code where drivers, particularly of quite large cars, in Radlett, seem to think it's okay to hover at the entrance to the slip roads where we have the free parking on the high street, frankly, because they don't look as if they can be bothered to walk a few minutes up the road. We need to have proper provision for disabled people, for those people who are unable to walk along the high street. We don't need to cut against every environmental and sustainable transport pledge that this council is making by actually looking to augment parking provision in Radlett beyond what we already have. I made a very clear commitment in my previous answer that any changes to the Newbury site will retain the existing levels of parking provision. I've seen no evidence whatsoever that there is any justifiable case for augmenting that provision even further. I would rather see investment in critical public transport services, both in Radlett and around the borough. In terms of consultation, I think, Councillor, with respect, you're missing the point. You guys already spent the best part of £700,000 on consultation and consultants on the Newbury's car park site in Radlett. I don't really feel a great imperative to add to that bill. We're already, thanks to your public meeting in part, well aware of the position of residents in Radlett. I'm also aware of many representations we've received from residents elsewhere in the borough who feel that Radlett should be treated on an equitable basis.
Can you wrap up, Councillor Newmark?
So the answer is no. The consultation in Radlett, the money's been spent,
it's
it's already been done. People have got our email address and they're welcome to reply.
Okay, we'll move over to the next question. The questioner is from Councillor Rani, which relates to reducing disinformation. Do you have a supplementary question?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for your response, Councillor Newmark. Given the increasing pace and reach of disinformation, especially during sensitive times, and the impact it can have on local people and businesses, often causing stress and anxiety, could the Cabinet member outline whether the Council has plans to create a rapid response protocol so misleading content can be identified and addressed more quickly and transparently? And what action can be taken against those who constantly spread disinformation on social media?
Councillor Newmark, can you respond?
Thank you, Councillor Rani, for your excellent question. There does seem to be an epidemic of fake news around and about Hertsmere at the moment, both from prolific Facebook warriors and from a lot of Councillor Cohen's leaflets that are circulating. Those are all excellent suggestions you've made, which are very much on the radar. They're suggestions that also appear in the recent LGA study of the impact of disinformation on local authorities. And of course, all of these things have resource implications, and those people responsible for spreading disinformation need to start to recognise the real impact of their activities. And let me be clear, because we have no wish to curtail free speech or legitimate discourse or robust debate. However, I want to make it really clear this evening that where individuals persistently promote and publish material with the intent to incite hatred, harm or bullying against council officers or elected members, this authority will take an increasingly robust approach in full collaboration with the Herts Police elected official advisor under the provisions of Operation Ford. And as I alluded to in my answer on the screen, I also recognise that the decline of local print media and genuine, authoritative online local reporting is something that leaves us at a huge disadvantage in terms of landing actually quite critical messages. And accordingly, we've initiated a programme of using public-facing council assets to site LED display boards, enabling us to communicate directly with the public. We have to realise that in the absence of the kind of local media we used to have, we need to become a content deliverer as well as a content provider. The first boards will be located on this building at the front of the civic offices and further down Shenley Road in Boreham Wood. And I invite suggestions from members for other suitable locations in their own wards across the borough.
Thanks, Councillor Newmark. Okay, then the next question we are going to go to is Councillor Cohen. It's all about changes on to recycling. Do you have any supplementary question to that effect as well?
Yes, thank you very much, Councillor Richards, for your answer. You say the policy hasn't changed, but clearly something has changed in practice. The number of rejected brown bins has surged. Complaints from residents are flooding in nearly 3 times the number of last year, and many of them are telling me via email they've had no prior warnings or clear guidance. Just a flyer on their bin with no details as to why the bin was rejected, and then they have to wait 2 weeks for it to be collected. Can Councillor Richards, the Cabinet member, explain how refusing to collect the bin for 2 weeks without any proactive communication and pushing residents to fill their black bins, which would send more waste to landfill, is in any way aligned with encouraging better recycling rates? Is this really the standard of service and clarity we should be offering residents for the most regular and visible service their council tax pays for?
Thanks. Councillor Richards, can you respond?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Cohen, for the question and supplementary question. It's incumbent on us. So if you recall, going back to the original waste and recycling reform set out nationally, if you recall, Rishi's 7 bins, the simpler recycling, it's incumbent on us really to set out the communications as best as possible. Now, in terms of the website, the A to Z, that is a very comprehensive set of information. We can't obviously distill that entirely onto a bin hanger or into one page of Hertsmere News. So we would always reference the website for the fullest set of information possible. We also have a set of new crews. So when you say something has changed, what has changed is the biggest recycling reform in 10 years. As part of that, we've had to optimise the round optimisation. So there are crews new to Hertsmere and potentially new to the rounds that they are conducting. But we have every confidence that despite some, there are always going to be some bumps in the road when it comes to such a big change in the recycling scheme. But we have every confidence in our crews, and I have every confidence in my officers that we are on the right track and that these bumps will be ironed out. Thank you.
So much. Okay, we'll move over to the next question. Is from Councillor Selby relating to food waste. Do you also have a supplementary question on the same topic?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councillor Richards, my question has not been answered, so let me try again. There are 39,000 homes with access to food bins. What percentage of these households are actively using their food bins? Thank you.
Councillor Richards, can you respond, please?
I don't have that information, unfortunately. It's not a measure that we have to hand. There is an ongoing process. Those residents in flats will receive a food waste bin, but towards the end of the year. There is also a number of residents that have relatively narrow access. For that, we are also implementing the food waste bin. So it's not a binary. All Hertsmere residents have access to food waste bins now. Do they use them? Yes, no. I'm afraid it's not as simple as that, but we are on track to roll out, as per, again, the simpler recycling, which is the Conservative central government consulted on, Labour subsequently followed up on the consultation, that by April 2026, food waste will needs to be rolled out nationally to all households, regardless of whether they live in a flat, a narrow access road, or a terraced house, detached house, whatever. We are on track to deliver that by April 2026, and indeed before that.
Thanks. Okay, we have the question from Councilor Rani, which relates to the sites, call for sites. Do you have a supplementary question also?
Yes, I do have. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for your response, Councillor Oakley. Could you clarify the timeline for when the council expects to publish the list of submitted sites and how local residents and councillors will be involved in the consultation and assessment process moving forward? Thank you.
Councillor Oakley, can you respond?
Mr. Mayor, I hope you'll bear with me and allow me to continue to sit down. As far as the call for sites is concerned, there were a considerable number of sites that came forward. Some were some old favourites that have actually been assessed previously and thrown out. There were also quite a few new sites that have come along. Now, all of those have to be assessed using what we call HELAR. And for those of you not familiar with that, it's Housing and Economic Land Availability Assessment. And that's what our officers are actually currently doing at the moment. As you appreciate, there are a large number of sites which have actually come forward that we haven't had before. Following that, all of these sites that are in the Green Belt will need to be assessed as part of the Green Belt, and whether they are going to be redesignated perhaps as Grey Belt, and that's going to be done by the consultants that we are actually hoping to appoint at the end of this week. Effectively, all of these things will actually come forward for the Reg 18 consultation in the autumn.
We'll go to the next question. It's from Councillor Clarkson about the Pride event flag. Do you have a supplementary question to this?
Yes, I do. Thank you. And thank you to Councillor Mumart for that detailed description of the intersex inclusive progress pride flag. And as a gay man, I love the original pride flag. Just a quick interpretation of that. It means life, healing, sunlight, nature, serenity, and spirit. And I don't dispute our incredibly diverse borough and workforce, but my concern is that at the moment where the government and indeed the courts protecting women, protecting young children for what could be seen as an overarching transgender-related laws, I observe the fact that Hackney is currently being sued by the Christian Legal Centre in Sex Matters, arguing that it's a political flag under the Local Government Act of 1986. Stevenage Borough Council had to swap the flags. North Herts Council chose to fly the original pride flag, which I am certainly identified with and am proud of. So I just asked the question, does the portfolio holder think that maybe under the Flag Act of 2021 we should look at what flag is actually legal to fly from Hertsmere buildings? I checked, it is the rainbow flag that's with those 6 colours. Should we not consult the Town and Country Planning Control of Advertisements England Regulators 2007, which does specify that we need planning permission before we fly the progressive pride flag, because it is indeed a political flag and advertising consent needs to be sought? And finally, would you agree that we set up maybe a flag flying strategy that enables consultation and the public have a greater awareness of what flags truly stand for, ones that are legal and ones that represent the entire community under the Equality Act?
Can you respond, Councillor Newmark?
Thank you, Councillor Clarkson. First of all, you're right to point out that the freedom flag can be flown without any form of consent or permission, provided that the conditions set out in the Town and Country Control of Advertisements, England Planning Regulations 2007 as amended are complied with. However, it's my understanding that the Council also has deemed consent by virtue of these regulations to fly a range of other flags from its flagpoles, including the Pride Progress flag. You see, you weren't going to catch me out on that one. But on the wider points that you raise, we've only had one email expressing concern about the flying of the Progress flag, and indeed many expressions of support from partner and representative organisations as well as individuals. I do appreciate the sensitivities and the very real debate around this issue and can't do it justice in the 2 minutes allocated here. But I'm sensitive to the concerns that he's raised, and I'm happy to meet with him to discuss this further. But fundamentally, it's not my role as council leader to enter into or take sides in the ongoing debates about trans and gender identity rights versus gay rights. But it is my role to ensure that in all of this council's interactions with our diverse communities, the council's tolerant, respectful, equitable and maximally inclusive. It's therefore right that we celebrate Pride Month by proudly flying the Pride flag. And I would remind members that the reason that happens now is because the group opposite refused to do it for many, many years, and we held, as in opposition, our own insurgent, unofficial flag-raising ceremony that eventually led to this being taken up as a formal part of the civic calendar, and rightly so, even if it was too late. But the reason that the Pride Progress flag was chosen is precisely because it was designed to represent and celebrate the diversity and inclusion of the wider LGBTQI+ community. And it's my view that it's a matter of indisputable fact that having now flown the Pride Progress flag at the civic offices during Pride Month, including under the previous administration, to suddenly revert to the Pride Freedom flag.
Pardon me, I mean, we've run out of time.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, that's just not right. No, I actually had 30 before you interrupted me, Mr. Mayor, and this is an important issue. My point was that having previously flown the Progress flag, which is maximally inclusive, including under the previous administration, to now revert to the Freedom flag, which many people would consider less inclusive, would be perceived by some people as exclusionary and a retrograde step, especially in terms of including trans and gender fluid people living and working in the borough. But as I say, we can have the conversation. I support the idea of a flag policy, and actually, funnily enough, it's something that I raised in the CMDP meeting last night.
Thank you.
Okay. Thanks all so much. Unfortunately, we are out of time, and we'll move over to agenda item number 17. It's all about the opposition business, yeah. Come on, opposition, what do you guys have to offer? What have you got to offer?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, colleagues, for agreeing to move this item, and I hope that you will all support it, even if you sat on the fence on the vote as to whether or not to move this item. Having started writing these words only 2 days ago, it would be fair to say that it's hard to keep up with all the updates and reports issued, as this is currently very topical and each draft is quickly outdated. It's fair to say that it's not been a good day at the office for the BBC. Last year they got an award for their broadcasting of Glastonbury, a little different to this year. The BBC received more complaints about Bob Villan's Glastonbury performance than any other issue in more than 4 years. That is quite an achievement, given that they received a huge amount of complaints regarding Gary Lineker's posts, and it took a lot of pressure before they had no choice but to address these. Let's not forget this hadn't been his first incident, as he'd also posted some offensive material in 2023. Even sacked, he still remains the highest paid person at the BBC at over 1.3 million, How does this make sense? We had the Hugh Edwards scandal. We now have the Greg Wallace debacle. There were complaints about his behaviour dating back to 2011, 14 years ago. MasterChef is in as much chaos as my kitchen when I attempt to cook. Let's not even discuss Jimmy Savile, but you see the trend. In any other world, such lax and poor performance would have been dealt with by now. Tim Davie has to go. The buck stops with him. On a salary of almost $550,000, he's just been given a pay rise. How can this be right? He failed to ensure any impartiality over the last few years, and his management of the BBC has only led to our residents and many others to feel unsafe, and I hold him responsible for inciting hatred. The BBC's airing of the Gaza documentary with no qualification of the sources was just unforgivable. Anyone would think that the BBC supports Hamas and terrorism. Kneecap and Bob Villan. Did the BBC really believe that there would be no spread of hate speech? I understand that live broadcasting can be cut in 3 seconds, so why wait? That was not okay. I was so incensed waking up the day after his performance that I decided to start a petition that in little over 2 weeks is now approaching 12,000 signatures and rising. So the BBC need to understand there are many thousands of people, thanks to them, do not feel safe. We, the taxpayer, fund this organisation that is no better than the terrorists it's giving airtime to. This is not just one incident, 2 or 3, but on a daily basis, the BBC continues to incite hate. This is not okay, and I ask that you...
You have been muted. You have been muted, ma'am. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, we'll move over. Councillor Clarkson, can you second this thing?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I second this motion and reserve my right to speak.
Councillor Newmark, yeah, take to the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I cut my own campaigning teeth as a teenager fighting the BNP and Combat 18 on the streets of East London alongside trade unionists and anti-fascist groups, and I still have the scar on the back of my head to prove it. Anti-Semitism is often described as the longest hatred. Anti-Semitism is often described as the longest hatred. It's a virus that's mutated into different forms since the Middle Ages. In our times, the single greatest proponent of anti-Semitic hate comes not from the BBC or a bunch of teens and trots at Glastonbury, but from extreme Islamist anti-Semitism, fueled by Iran, both directly and through proxies like Hamas, the Palestinian wing of the Muslim Brotherhood. This is the nature of the problem today, and we must not shy away or be diverted from calling it out. I commend this motion for going some way towards acknowledging that, and I welcome Councillor Sussman's petition in relation to the BBC, but let's not fall into the trap of believing the BBC is the root cause of this problem here. That positive as this motion is, my view is it doesn't go far enough. So tonight I extend a hand across the chamber, around the chamber, and invite the other groups to engage with us in all-party talks on a political programme to combat this hate. I'd like to build on this motion and do what politicians can do best, change the chilling dynamic that's starting to take hold in this country. Let's reaffirm this Council's commitment to the IHRA definition of anti-Semitism. Let's use it as a basis to arrange training for members, officers, partners and community leaders. Let's work with the Mayor to ensure this year's Holocaust Memorial Day is another platform for education against hate. Let's make our voice heard in the local government sector against growing calls to engage in boycott, divestment and sanctions against the world's only Jewish state. It's already happening up the road in Brent. So I think this motion is a good start. Councillor. I think it needs clarity and I think it needs more work. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, you're welcome. Yeah, I will call upon Councillor Allen. Yeah.
As many members know, my partner is Jewish, my children are Jewish, and our eldest daughter, who was stillborn, is buried at Bushey Jewish Cemetery. My in-laws are Jewish. My sister-in-law lives 10 miles north of Jerusalem. 2 of her daughters, our nieces, are right now serving in the IDF. For me, these are not abstract issues. I condemn anyone, including Pascal Robinson Foster, who calls for the death of my family members or anyone's. However, aspects of this motion make me uncomfortable. Firstly, it risks trivializing these matters because what matters are the real lives and real deaths of real people in a conflict 2,000 miles away, a conflict in which even Donald Trump has no influence, let alone Hertsmere Borough Council. For us to sit here discussing Glastonbury and now Gary Lineker and MasterChef, while all that trauma continues regardless, does not, to me, feel quite right. More importantly, it is absolutely not for us as politicians to tell the BBC or any broadcasters what to do. That's why we have Ofcom and the BBC Trust. The freedom of the media, including the freedom to make mistakes, and its independence from day-to-day politics are fundamental axioms of a liberal democracy. A free press is what makes Israel a beacon of the Middle East, unlike many of its neighbours. If you want politicians to control broadcasters, be careful what you wish for. Imagine if Jeremy Corbyn had become Prime Minister. Imagine if Nigel Farage becomes Prime Minister. Would you give them the keys to the BBC? An important part of politics is knowing when not to get involved. This is one such case.
You've been muted. You've been muted. Yeah. Okay. I'll call upon Councilor Kaza, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Misinformation. It's more important than ever to stand united against hate. Hatred, whether based on race, religion, gender, sexuality, or nationality, tears communities apart and breeds violence. But when we come together with empathy, courage, and understanding, we build bridges where others try to build walls. Being united against hate means more than just rejecting bigotry. It means actively creating spaces where everyone feels safe, valued, and heard. It means speaking up when we witness injustice, supporting those who are targeted, and educating ourselves and others about the roots and impact of hate. Unity does not require us to be the same. It celebrates our differences while recognizing our shared humanity. This is a call to action. Each of us has a role to play in shaping a future where love and respect triumph over fear and division. Whether through conversation, protest, art, or policy, we must challenge hatred wherever it appears. Only together can we dismantle systems of oppression and create a world grounded in dignity and equality. The Glastonbury hate statements have crossed the line into hate speech. And I would implore that while condemning the unacceptability of the language, we should together aim to maintain a sense of equanimity. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Kaza. I recognize Councillor Gray.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I speak in support of this motion, not only to condemn hate, but to reaffirm what Hertsmere stands for. A borough rooted in respect, inclusion, and unity. Hertsmere is home to vibrant communities, Jewish, Christian, Muslim, Hindu, Sikh, and many others, as well as people from a wide range of ethnic, cultural, and national backgrounds. This diversity isn't something we simply tolerate, it's something we're proud of. It enriches our schools, our businesses, our faith groups, and our everyday lives. So when hateful rhetoric is broadcast across the country, it doesn't just affect one group, it sends a chilling message to all our communities. It threatens the cohesion we have worked hard to build here in Hertsmere. This motion is clear in its message. Incitement, division, and glorification of violence have no place in public discourse, and we as a council will not stay silent in the face of it. We stand in solidarity with our Jewish residents, as with all communities, and in saying that Hertsmere will always be the place where people live side by side in peace and not fear, where hate is confronted and where cohesion is protected. I urge members to support this motion, not just in words but in spirit, as a declaration of our shared community values here in Hertsmere. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, I'll call upon Councillor Clarkson, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, and thank you to colleagues across the chamber for your constructive dialogue, with particular mention to Councillor Newmark. It's one of the finest things you ever said, Councillor, in this chamber, and we look forward to working with you further to build on this resolution. Mr. Mayor, when your state broadcaster refuses to call Hamas terrorists, gives airtime to hate speech and funds content involving the families of Hamas officials, it's not just bias, Councillor Allen, it's betrayal. The Jewish community here in Hertsmere, and especially in my ward of Bournemouth Hillside, has had to endure repeated apologies from the BBC, repeated failures from the BBC, but it's just rinse and repeat, because the Jewish community doesn't count. So the impetus around this motion isn't just about one bad headline at Glastonbury, it's about addressing this legacy of disregard. The close to 12,000 people who have signed our petition, myself and Councillor Sussman, are asking themselves why should it continue to call itself the British Broadcasting Corporation when it promotes anti-British values while causing pain and fear to our Jewish residents? Something stronger than regret is urgently called for, Mr. Mayor. Compare the reaction to Bob Villan calling a vast throng to murder Israelis with the lightning clampdown on Lucy Connolly and others who tweeted their anger over the Southport massacre. Lucy Connolly must be wondering from her prison cell, why can pop stars at Glastonbury get away with it while they send me to jail for 31 months? Let me tell you what's disgusting, Mr. Mayor. What I'm worried about is the way flagrant displays of anti-Semitism have been tolerated on the streets of our capital just a few miles from here since October the 7th. The prejudice given daily succour by our BBC. Bob Villan wished death on the IDF, on the men and women who have done their damnedest to protect Western civilization by rooting Hezbollah and Hamas and damaging Iran's nuclear capability. Councillor Allen, he broke the law. He broke British law by saying what he said, and the BBC broadcast that crime to the nation. But he's right, we do want our country back, so stand with me, Councillor Sussman, and myself, colleagues around this chamber, and let's fight back. Let's stand up for our Jewish community.
Now we'll have some proposal. Councillor Sussman, I think you've already stood up without my approval. How well you can? Okay, stand up. Yeah, you can sum up now.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Thank you to my colleagues in the chamber. Councillor Newmark, we really look forward to working with you and all the groups here. And Councillor Allen, I'm sure that you would agree to point 2 about affirming it in Hertsmere News. Yesterday, I was so proud to go to Parliament with Councillors Cohen and Clarkson to meet up with 3 MPs, the Right Honourables Oliver Dowden, Stuart Andrew and Sakib Bharti. Sakib is the Vice Chair of the Anti-Semitism Policy Trust, and Mr. Andrew is the Shadow Secretary of State for Culture, Media and Sport. I would now like to quote the Right Honourable Lisa Nandy, our Secretary of State for Culture, Media and Sport. She said of the BBC that they had had a series of catastrophic errors. Yes, catastrophic. I hope that she will engage with our MP and the Shadow Secretary of State for Culture, Media and Sport, and that together we can collectively hold the BBC to account and be united against hate. Let's all work together to show our residents and the wider electorate nationally that we at Hertsmere do not tolerate such behaviour and that we all support holding the BBC to account, and we are united against hate. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Sussman. Members, are we ready to vote? Well, as far as I can see, the motion has been carried. So well done. Okay, we'll come back over to page 10 on the agenda. Let me see. We're going to look at agenda item number 7, and that is the decision report, procurement of laptops, network, infrastructure, refresh, and SharePoint. I call on Councilor Giorgio to move the recommendations as set out in the report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Before we discuss and debate agenda item 7, I'd first like to give my thanks to Councillor Rebecca Chalice for her work with officers to upgrade Hertsmere's website to be more modern and accessible during her time as Cabinet Member for Resources, IT and Digital Transformation. This agenda item, which has been recommended by Cabinet, looks to request an additional £585,000 to procure staff devices and network infrastructure. The project also looks to deliver access to OneDrive for staff documents, SharePoint for shared documents, and includes using Microsoft Purview to manage, govern and protect council data. The costs of this project can be broken down into £325,000 to procure 307 laptops, 19 desktops with device re-imaging, and £260,000 to provide network infrastructure for core network services, a refreshed wireless network and network access control. We are requesting these funds in addition to budgeting funds, as these upgrades will continue the work we have done so far to modernise our offices, this chamber and our move to cloud infrastructure. Whilst leasing this equipment is an option, the long-term cost will be far higher for doing so, and so would not give best value for our residents. This upgrade will improve the confidentiality, integrity and availability of our devices and network, and this is especially important in light of the continued cyber threats facing all UK organisations. This is also a recommendation from the Hertfordshire Shared Internal Audit Service, as our current network infrastructure is over 10 years old. These upgrades will also enable staff to work more efficiently using up-to-date tools, including unlocking the ability for staff to make better use of AI tools such as Microsoft Copilot in the future. The purchase of these upgrades will put us in good stead during local government reorganisation. Having up-to-date laptops with the latest Coffee Lake processors and robust network infrastructure, Raptor Lake processors with robust network infrastructure, will mean any future combined authority will not have surprises on spending soon after forming. This infrastructure can also be moved to any future premises should we do so. The introduction of Microsoft SharePoint will also make merging information between authorities simpler, as well as helping staff to cross-train each other in their policies and processes. Purview will also give any new authority better insights into the location, type and size of data we store. The project is expected to run for around 12 weeks from mid-August to October, during which time there will be a phased rollout of devices to staff. A staff cost is one of the highest costs to the council, and there is also a cost of work not done or delayed due to staff vacancies. Making these improvements now will help us to save money in the long term by reducing our need to increase the number of staff we hire. Therefore, by approving this agenda item, we can ensure that we can continue to deliver the services our residents need efficiently. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Giorgio. I call on Councillor Shenton to second this.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I will second this motion and reserve my right to speak, if I may.
Okay. Now, this matter is now open for debate. I will call upon the Conservative. Yeah. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, I rise today to support the proposed procurement of laptops, hardware and software for our council staff. This investment is both timely and essential. It addresses recommendations from the recent Local Government Association Peer Challenge and reflects feedback from our own staff surveys. Our officers have been clear: to deliver high-quality services, they need reliable, modern tools. Upgrading IT equipment is not just about meeting operational needs.
It sends a strong message that we value our workforce. Modern technology supports better service delivery, boosts productivity and helps retain and motivate staff, especially crucial at a time when morale and retention are sometimes major challenges across the sector right now. However, I do share some concerns with some of my own colleagues about the process here. This need was identified quite early on, so it's surprising it wasn't included in the rolling 5-year budget plan. While our support for staff remains firm, it's vital we embed such essential investments into our medium-term financial planning. That said, this is an opportunity for us to act quickly, correct the oversight, and move forward. We owe it to our staff and ultimately to our residents to ensure our frontline teams have the technology they need to do their jobs effectively. I look forward to seeing improvements in staff survey results and key performance indicators after this rollout. And let's ensure that this marks the start of a bigger conversation about how we invest in and support our own people. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Mina. Okay, I'll ask Councillor Chalice to please respond.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd just like to start off by welcoming this report, the new laptops and refreshed network infrastructure and the rollout of the SharePoint. The investment outlined here is a substantial one, but it's clearly essential. The current ICT is clearly reaching its end of life, and the impact of outdated equipment is already being felt by staff in terms of performance, productivity, and also morale. The link between digital capability and workforce satisfaction came through strongly in the recent staff survey, and I'm pleased to see that it's being addressed so directly. The proposed upgrades will support hybrid working, strengthen disaster recovery plans, and assure we remain compliant with critical security standards. I appreciate the clear timelines that have been set out, particularly the attention to detail within this. And to conclude, I welcome this proposal and thank officers and the portfolio holders for their time in this. Thank you.
Councillor Gray.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I fully support this report in front of us here this evening. We need to give our staff the best tools to do their jobs to the best of their abilities, and also give all of our staff and tenants here in the building a network that is fit for purpose. I'm very pleased to see that iPads have been we've been advised that iPads are suboptimal for use in this council, something I made quite clear when in opposition to the previous portfolio holder, that it weren't the best tools going forward. We need to upgrade our systems regularly, make sure we're safe and secure. We don't want to be the next M&S or Co-op going forward. Thank you.
I'll call on Councillor Giorgio to sum up.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
I've not overlooked you, you know.
Yeah, I'm too small, you overlooked me. Thank you. We should remember that 5 years ago we were in lockdown, and that clearly brought about a profound change in working practice. The Council is sinking funds for replacement of essential equipment, but the change in working practice towards more working from home has led to higher costs for laptops and associated equipment. Much of the cost is associated with network infrastructure and the rapid growth of wireless networking. The proposal also introduces SharePoint software to help collaborative working itself, and that's increasingly important where different members of teams are working in different places. The network infrastructure is also coming to the end of its life, and a refreshed structure is being proposed which will provide improved performance and, crucially, better security. Security is a constantly evolving challenge, and it is essential that the Council stays up to date with both hardware and software. But this does inevitably cost money. The reality, of course, is it costs far less than being hacked. I move this motion. Thank you.
Councillor Giorgio, can you sum up, please?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I give my thanks to councillors from all parties for their support on this item. I'll just say that you'll remember that when we first took control of this council, we were still using an overhead projector, which is technology I had not seen since singing Cauliflower's Fluffy and All Things Bright and Beautiful in primary school. The reason why these upgrades were not included in our original budgeting was because, as I pointed out earlier in my speech, we urgently needed to address the dilapidation of our offices in council chamber using that budget. Our team are committed to actively addressing issues as they present themselves to us, which is why we've brought this issue forward as soon as possible. Thank you.
Thanks so much. Members, are we ready to vote? It has been agreed and carried, so you are well done. Excuse me. Agenda item number 8, decision report, allocation of community infrastructure levy. That is the sale funding. Millbrook Green Play area and Little Heath and Potter's Bar Scout Hub. I call on Councilor Oakley to move the recommendations as set out in the report. Councilor Oakley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Endeavour to get up. Before I even became portfolio holder, I was determined that the millions collected by this council in community infrastructure levy funds would be properly used on infrastructure and community projects, and that the scheme would be easily accessible to all on a 24/7 basis. Gone would be the demands for match funding, gone would be the once-in-a-blue-moon opportunity to apply, and gone would be the extraordinarily complex process. It's only projects requiring 100,000 or more that need to come before full council. The Community Infrastructure Levy Investment Panel decides on the applications, and I chose members from across the borough and the political spectrum for their community engagement, financial knowledge and scrutiny skills. We are emphatic that they are deserving and well thought out schemes. The latest applications we have before us tonight are prime examples of what Neighbourhood SIL is for. Projects that will not only enhance young people's lives, but the broader community. Millbrook Green Play Area, North Bushy, is a fabulous scheme in an area where there is a deficit of provision, particularly for the under 8-year-olds. The suggestion was brought forward by the ward councillors, who undertook an informal public consultation and designed by our own parks team. The facilities are listed on the agenda. The award is for up to £135,000. If approved by council tonight, then quotes of the work can be sought and a planning application submitted. On the other side of the borough, we have the first Little Heath and Potter's Bar Scout Group, who have been part of the community for more than 100 years. Their project to rebuild their dilapidated hut came to a halt due to COVID and escalating costs. This new scheme envisages a multi-purpose community space on Quakers Lane, which will be let out to other community groups and social groups. Our infrastructure delivery plan identifies youth provision as a priority, and this scheme takes the borough a step nearer. The Scout Group has already raised £200,000, and they're looking for up to £345,000 SIL funds. They provided the panel with a detailed quote, plans and tender. I'm asking Council tonight to approve total funds of £445,000 from a fund which at borough level is over £20 million.
Thanks, Councillor Oakley. I'll call on Councillor Nicholas to second.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I second the recommendation and reserve my right to speak.
This matter is now open for debate. Yes, please, Councillor Sullivan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I rise tonight in wholehearted support of two exceptional community infrastructure levy bids, projects that are a lasting investment in our young people, our green spaces and our shared future here in Hertsmere. The first is the bid for Millbrook Green Playground in Bushy, an inspiring project that offers a safe, inclusive and engaging space for children and families. This playground isn't just a play area, it's a community asset that promotes health, well-being and social connection. It will serve not just Bushy, but families from across the borough, in a time when outdoor spaces matter more than ever. This project is a perfect example of how we can support healthy childhoods. The second bid is one particularly close to my heart. First Little Heath and Potters Bar Scout Hut in Potters Bar. This is a £345,000 investment that will finally give First Little Heath Scouts their forever home. These young people and volunteers who support them have worked tirelessly for years for this project, and their commitment is extraordinary, and I feel extremely proud to support them. The best way to display how important this seal bid is to tell you directly from those it will benefit. From the Beavers, Enzo said, "It will feel special to have a hut we can call our own. I'd like to help paint it and feel proud." And Grayson says, "It would be so good as we can add all the cool stuff we make at Beavers and share it with everyone that comes to the hall, and then everyone will want to become Beavers." In summary, I urge all members to back these projects and help turn community ambitions into reality. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor. I'll start with that. I will call upon Councillor Amron, please. Councillor Gray, do you wish to add your voice? Yeah. Councillor Myers. Nobody's rating it on my thing as Councillor Gray.
Thank you, Mr.
It was
Mayor.
erroneously typed out. You know?
Far too many Chris's. Thank you. Over the past few years, I've had the real privilege of visiting the fundraisers, hearing the vision and seeing firsthand the relentless commitment of the First Little Heath Scouts leaders, parents and young people. They haven't just been talking about building a new Scout hut, they've been building a community stone by stone, cake sale by cake sale, all driven by the love for their young people and belief in what they're capable of. This grant isn't just about bricks and mortar, it's about investing in the next generation, giving young people a space that's safe, accessible and inspiring, somewhere they can develop skills, confidence and friendships that will stay with them for life. And that goes for the accessible play area in Bushy. For too long, disabled children and families have been left out of spaces that should be for everyone. Tonight we take a step forward for changing that. We're clearly saying every child in Hertsmere deserves to play, to be included, to feel that public spaces are for them too. And what I'm especially proud of is that these decisions didn't fall down party lines. We all recognised how important and worthwhile these projects are. And that's how local government should work, and it does when we're at our best. This is what happens when we put politics aside and put people, especially young people, first, and I'm proud to support this funding, and even prouder of the communities behind these projects who never gave up. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Yeah, Councillor Cohen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to speak briefly in support of the SIL process before us today. It was during my time as portfolio holder that Hertsmere first adopted the Community Infrastructure Levy with a vision to ensure that development brought meaningful benefits to our residents. At that time, we sought to allocate a major portion of SIL to address infrastructure deficits which we anticipated tackling through a local plan, a plan that, as we now know, regrettably never came to fruition. However, I must welcome the fact that this administration is now using SIL to support more localised projects, such as the Millbrook Green Play Area and the Potters Bar Scout Hut. These are the kinds of community-facing investments that SIL was always intended to enable. As Conservatives, we have always believed in localism, empowering communities, preserving local identity and bringing decision-making as close to residents as possible. The efforts to make SIL more accessible, particularly in non-parished areas, are to be commended. I hope this will lead to a more equitable distribution of funding and greater engagement from grassroots organisations who are often best placed to identify local needs. Finally, I think it would be helpful if members could receive regular updates on how parished areas are spending their neighbourhood SIL allocations. Transparency here would not only inform best practice, but ensure consistency and fairness across the borough. Thank you.
Is there any other speaker? Oh, yes, Councillor. Yeah, please, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah.
Colleagues, I'm proud to second this proposal, not only as a member of this council, but as one of the councillors for North Bushy, where one of these projects, the Millbrook Green Play Area, will make a real and lasting difference to families in the community. This proposal responds directly to what residents have told us. Millbrook Green is a well-used green space, but without a single piece of play equipment. That will now change. With safe, inclusive and imaginative play facilities, we're giving children a space to enjoy and parents peace of mind, whilst enhancing an already valued but underutilised part of the neighbourhood. Likewise, the funding for the First Little Heath and Potters Bar Scout Hut will breathe life back into a much-loved local institution. It's about more than bricks and mortar, as we've heard this evening. It's about future generations having a place to grow, learn and belong. This is a well-organised project with planning permission already in place, local fundraising already achieved, and a clear plan for sustainability through future rentals and expanded youth engagement. Both bids were carefully considered by the SIL member panel, meet clear local needs and are ready to deliver. This is exactly what SIL was designed for, putting developer contributions to work for our residents. I fully support the funding of both these projects and ask colleagues to do the same. Thank you.
Councillor Oakley, can you sum it up, please?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's not often that we have unanimity across the chamber. I'm extremely pleased that everyone supports both of these schemes, and there's little more to say other than hopefully we will now approve the funding for both of these wonderful projects. One thing Councillor Cohen said, yes, you're quite right. I think we should have reports from the individual parishes and towns on what they're spending their money on.
Okay, thanks all so much, Councillor Oakley. Now, members, are we ready to vote? Yeah. Well, as far as I can see, it has been passed. Yeah. Yeah. As far as I can see, it has been carried. It's unanimous. So well done to everyone. We'll move over to agenda item number 9, which is the update report with the bus route from Potters Bar to Barnet Hospital relating to July 2025. I'll call on Councillor Oakley to move the recommendations as set out in the report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Hopefully I'm on a good run here. I was also rather hoping to leave the chamber without anyone calling me the Queen of Buses, and I look to my left here. Nevertheless, I am proud that the 84B bus has become so popular that a commercial operator actually wants to take over the route. And as a local authority, we can actually bow out saying that we gave back the people of Potters Bar their life-saving link to Barnet and prove that there was a demand for it. I'm sure most of you don't need reminding of the history. Metroline buses withdrew the route in 2022, with Sullivan buses only wanting the St Albans to Potters Bar section. Much campaigning by residents and us was to no avail. But I had a plan, and I don't think the ink was dry on my declaration paper before I swung into action to use SIL funds for the route. That side of the chamber said it couldn't be done. But yes, I was the first person in the country to use SIL funds for a daily bus service. I planned the route and made sure it went to Barnet Hospital. I grovelled to Barnet to TfL for funds to no avail. Herts County Council produced a timetable and tendered the route for us, but they didn't give us any money at the outset either. It was all done in 4 months for the start of the school year. And for any of you who know anything about transport planning, that's quite a feat. Last week, someone asked me if I was sad that the 84B would be no more. Quite the reverse, I told them. I said it would be successful, and I was right. What's in the name? It's the service that matters. The service will run exactly as it does now, but it'll be the bus 243, and it'll run through to Hatfield as well. That just leaves me to thank Central Connect for running the service for the last 2 years, Hertfordshire County Council for giving me £60,000 for this year, and my bus champions for their unwavering support. But for the people of Potters Bar, and indeed all bus users across the borough, always remember, use it or lose it.
Okay, thanks. I call on Councillor Myers to second the motion.
Yeah, thank you. I'd like to second this, Mr. Mayor, and reserve my right to speak.
Now, this matter is now open. I will call upon you, ma'am. Yeah.
Residents travel from Waltham Cross to Cotters Bar, Hatfield. Similarly, the 243 running from Hatfield through Potters Bar to Barnet is good news and will enable students to more easily access Hertfordshire University and Barnet College, alongside connecting residents to the Tube and hospital in Barnet. However, digging deeper, I note that the 243 is replacing the current 84B, so in itself does not provide an additional service. It is simply a replacement bus, not an additional bus. It seems that we have robbed Peter to give to Paul. Moreover, Potters Bar has lost its link both to Cockfosters and Luton Airport with the termination of the 610, a loss of 14 buses a day. Whilst I appreciate the cost of running these buses, I feel that an hourly service to Barnet that only runs between early morning and early evening, Monday to Saturday, does not meet residents' needs. I am pushing for a minimum of a half-hourly bus service between Potters Bar and Barnet, running late into the evening, 7 days a week. There are so many for whom access to owning a car is beyond reach, particularly with the introduction of ULEZ. Is this yet another example of hitting those at the margins of society? I'm not trying to make this about party politics, but I'm looking through a social justice lens, and I genuinely do not feel that these proposals go far enough. I have one message.
You have been muted.
Get the buses moving.
Here. Okay, I recognize Councillor Clapper, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I want to begin by thanking Councillor Oakley for the work she's done to secure the continuation of the 84B bus from Potters Bar to Barnet. It's a well-used and important connection, particularly for those needing access to Barnet Hospital, and it's right that local infrastructure like this is supported. But while we absolutely welcome that outcome, it's difficult to ignore the contrast with what's happening elsewhere in the borough, particularly with the recent withdrawal of the 601. Families in Boreham Wood, Radlett and surrounding areas have been left scrambling to find alternatives, with school transport suddenly thrown into question. County officers have worked incredibly hard to try and plug the gaps, and we're very grateful to them. But the fact remains, if Councillor Oakley was able to step in and find funding to secure the 84B, why couldn't she or the council have done the same for the 601? At the time, some of us warned that using borough SIL money to subsidise a local bus route set a precedent. And now that precedent is being tested, with other communities quite rightly asking, where is the parity? And it's not just about transport. This council also made the decision to reduce the amount of SIL funding going towards special school places for children across this borough, funding that would have directly supported some of our most vulnerable young people. At the same time, over £1 million of SIL was allocated to Potters Bar Football Club. Now, nobody begrudges Potters Bar these investments, but residents across the rest of Hertsmere have every right to ask, are our priorities being treated equally? Councillor Oakley, we would like to see the same energy and determination that you have shown with the 84B bus applied right across the borough. SIL is for community infrastructure, and that must mean all communities, not just one. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, yeah, Councillor Matthew, yeah, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to congratulate Councillor Oakley for her commitment and determination in rescuing the link between Potters Bar and Barnet after the 84 bus service was cut. This provided essential and affordable access to healthcare at Barnet Hospital, particularly important for an ageing population without access to their own transport, and it was an imperative to reinstate the service for school children in time for the 23-24 academic year. The innovative use of neighbourhood cell averted the crisis and enabled the service to continue to the point that a commercial operator, UNO, has seen that this is a popular and viable route which they will now take on. The new service will run between Hatfield and Barnet via Potters Bar, commencing in September at no further cost to the council. Maintaining this service provides real benefits to groups more dependent on bus services, the elderly, school children, people with disabilities, and those on lower incomes. It also provides an environmentally sustainable alternative, keeping more cars off the road. Councillor Oakley has had to overcome major obstacles to achieve such a positive outcome, which addresses the needs of the most vulnerable groups in the borough, and the council needs to recognise her critical role in this huge achievement. We support these recommendations. Thank you.
Yes, Councillor Giorgio, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to give my thanks also to Councillor Oakley for her fantastic work in helping us to restore the 84B bus route, and secondly, working with Uno buses to secure the route under the 243 bus route. The addition of the 242 route is also welcome, as it allows people from the east of our borough to continue their journey to Hatfield without changing. We've spoken in the Chamber at length previously about the importance of the 84B bus in particular. During the May 2023 elections, Potters Bar residents made it clear that protecting this route was a priority concern. Now that Uno have agreed to take on this route, residents of Potters Bar will continue to be able to travel from Potters Bar Station to the Potters Bar Hospital, High Barnet High Street, to the Northern Line and Barnet Hospital. This is a vital lifeline for so many people, from school children trying to get to Queen Elizabeth Boys and Girls Schools, people travelling for work and people travelling for doctor and hospital appointments. In addition to this route, residents will soon be able to make use of the northern connection of the 243 to Hertfordshire University, the Galleria and to Hatfield Industrial Area, granting easier access to offices, industrial units and gyms in the area. Councillor Sarah Hodgson-Jones, you seem to misunderstand that no one is saying that this is an additional bus. It's a private service which no longer requires money from our SIL funding. The 298 covers Cockfosters, and this route, as well as the 242, will now be covering the access to Hatfield. And so, you know, if you want to travel on to Luton Airport as well, you can get a train and then a bus and things like that. So there are routes which would make it quicker to travel to the airport. This council has shown investments in key areas which can help revitalise vital transport networks in our towns, and I look forward to seeing the green shoots of our future investments leading the way forward for a decade of renewal in the UK. Thank you.
Councillor Myers, do you propose to speak?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Sometimes in local government, we get the chance to do something that makes a real lasting difference in people's lives, and this is one of those moments. When the direct bus link between Potters Bar and Barnet was lost, it had a real impact. We heard from residents who struggled to get to hospital appointments, to work or to see loved ones. For many, it wasn't just inconvenience, it was isolating. Thanks to the tireless campaigning by the community and hard work of this council, we were able to step in and trial a solution, the 84B. And it was not only was it welcomed, it was used and appreciated across the board. And now, the best possible outcome, a long-term solution with a commercial operator stepping in to provide the new 243 service, connecting Hatfield, Potters Bar and Barnet. That doesn't just happen, it takes commitment, creative thinking and a lot of behind-the-scenes effort. So I want to thank all the residents who kept pushing for change, the operators who've worked with us, and in particular Councillor Nick Oakley, whose determination, persistence and eye for detail helped to bring this all together. This is a great example of what local government can achieve when it listens, adapts and works in partnership. I'm really proud to second this report. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thanks, Councillor Myers. Councillor Oakley, I'll call upon you to sum up this.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Giorgio, for responding to Councillor Hodgson-Jones' issues over routes around Potters Bar. I'll concentrate then on the difference between funding the 84B and dealing with the 610, which is about to be axed. We used NSIL funds to fund the 84B. And one of the things I said about a week ago was that we could look at funding the 601 using NSIL, but it would need to come from the parish and town councils. Now, I know the size of the funding gap for just Boreham Wood to St Albans. Councillor Clapper, I doubt very much whether your parish council will cough up the best part of £100,000 to do this. So that's the first thing, but it was something I was certainly prepared to do, to talk to them. I'm afraid you jumped the gun yesterday by releasing information from the County Council before it had all been signed off, and I hope you doing that doesn't in any way impact on what the County Council are trying to do to plug the gaps in this particular service. I also take exception to what you said about the reduction in SIL funding for special schools. We only did what every other borough in Hertfordshire did. And I would now like to move what's on the order paper and accept what we are doing. Thank you.
Mr Mayor, am I allowed a point of clarification because I was referred to in Councillor Oakley's speech?
Yeah, okay, go ahead.
Under procedure rule, anyone? Point of information I'm allowed to say because I was referred to in Councillor Oakley's speech. 15:30. Councillor Oakley, just to clarify, I am a county councillor, and I'm not saying that I was given the information by county officers and that information was allowed to be released. I should, as a county councillor, receive that information prior to portfolio holders of borough councils. So I'm sorry if you feel that I jumped the gun on the information, but that information was given to me by county council officers with the approval that could be shared with the local community.
That's not...
She has responded. Okay, members, are we ready to vote on this issue? It seems to be unanimous. Yeah. Okay, now at least we're getting somewhere. Now we'll go over to agenda item number 10, which is update report. Appointments to outside bodies. I call on Councilor Newmark to move the recommendation as set out in the report.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. This is just a small update to account for developments that took place since the annual meeting of Council. This effectively continues to oil the wheels of Councillor Bright's process of gently receding to the comfort of the back benches as he stands down as one of our 3 representatives on the Shenley Park Trust. I'd like to thank him for his service in that role. I'm pleased that Councillor Sussman has stepped up to take it on. I know it's something she's been keen to do for quite some time, and I'm pleased that we're able this evening to make her dreams come true. And I'd also like to thank Councillor Umron for standing in as the official substitute nominee for the Hertfordshire Health Scrutiny Committee, and I'm sure that he will be excellent backup for the phenomenal work that's being done on that committee by Councillor Dachakaza, holding our ICB in particular to account for the lack of new additional medical provision around the borough and specifically in Boreham Wood.
Thanks, Councillor Newmark. I'll call on Councillor Sullivan, please.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Yes, I'm pleased to second these recommendations as in the reports. Thank you.
Now the matter is now open for a debate.
Else. And the question is, could we please have, from this moment on, a report through our representative on the Health Scrutiny Committee and the substitute member on the Health Scrutiny Committee, back to full council on a regular basis. I think Councillor Newmark is right that the Health Scrutiny Committee in Hertfordshire County Council does a very, very good job for the whole of Hertfordshire, not only Hertsmere, but I think it would be nice if we could hear back directly from the representatives on that committee to this council. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thanks so much. Well, I will ask the clerk to have that noted. Okay. Pardon me? Oh. One has it. Let me see. Okay. Councillor Newmark is to sum up. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Not much more to say on this. I'll address Councillor Quilty's point. Obviously, the rep on the County-wide Health Scrutiny Committee normally reports back periodically under the outside bodies section of the agenda. We often don't reach that, so I think it is an excellent suggestion, although I know that Councillor Kaza is very fastidious about posting reports of those meetings on social media, that perhaps CMDP could address this matter and create a mechanism for a report back to full council after each meeting of that Health Scrutiny Committee, because I do think it's important. Otherwise, I commend this report to members.
Thanks all so much. Howard, the long awaited, we can go for a vote, please, on this matter. Well, actually, this has been carried. So well done. Now let's go over to agenda item number 11, and that is the special urgency decision quarterly report. And council, can we please note that in the last quarter, no key decisions have been taken in circumstances of special urgency. Is that noted? Okay, good. We'll come over to item number 12 on the agenda, and that is urgent decisions exempt from calling. Members, no urgent decisions have been taken with my approval as set out in the Constitution. Can we note this, please? Okay, that's great. Thank you. Then we come over to agenda item number 13, the report of the leader of the council. The process for dealing with the leader's report is clear. The leader will present their report, followed by up to 5 minutes from the deputy leader. After that, there will be 45 minutes for questions and answers by the leader. This includes a response by the leader of the opposition group, who may speak on matters relating to the report for the same length of time as the leader, or a minimum of 10 minutes. After this, other members may wish to ask questions of the leader, avoiding personal statements and only raising questions on matters raised by the leader. I will expect you to raise your questions to the leader succinctly and not make lengthy statements. Councilor Newmark may choose to call on a cabinet member or a committee chair to respond to questions. So I now call on the leader to present your report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. because I clearly didn't get the memo that we were paying tribute to the outgoing leader of the Liberal Democrat group earlier in the meeting. I plan to say something now, so I will. It's an absolute pleasure to work with Councillor Richards over past period of his tenure as leadership of the Lib Dem group. I'm delighted he's remaining in situ as a member of the Cabinet, continuing assiduously and diligently to take a lead on helping us to shift the dial when it comes to recycling rates and a lead on everything green and sustainable. I do think that that is an absolutely pivotal role in our agenda moving forward over the next few years. So looking forward to continue to work with him in that capacity. He has a unique ability to create a sense of calm and coherence, whatever other madness and chaos may be going on around this place. And it's very much something that I valued working closely with him in his role both as Lib Dem group leader and deputy leader of the council. So thank you, Councillor Richards. Friends, we meet this evening at what is undoubtedly a challenging time for Hertsmere and local government in general. At the recent Local Government Association conference in Liverpool, attended by myself, our Chief Executive and Councillor Sullivan, and Councillor Bright, in fact, the agenda was naturally dominated by talk of devolution and local government reorganisation, arguably rightly so. And we have a motion on that later on this evening. Our own Hertsmere Devolution Board met and had both a lengthy and very constructive all-party conversation on these issues last night. I know that political groups have also been briefed in detail by officers and or their own leaders, so I don't intend to dwell upon that issue during my remarks this evening, other than to say one thing. Local government reorganisation undoubtedly matters. It'll have a huge impact upon local people, local businesses, and the delivery of critical local services. Devolution matters as well. In fact, I think it matters more because it's the devolution element of the Devolution in England Bill that brings with it that array of exciting opportunities for Hertfordshire to take its future more directly into its own hands. The transfer of power from Whitehall to directly elected mayors is a huge win, in my view, and actually much more interesting than whether we end up with 2, 3 or 4 unitary authorities around here from 2028. I'd like on that note to congratulate the new administration at the County Council for heeding our warnings and deleting the plans for a single unitary mega council from the options that may be taken forward by the sort of Hertfordshire collective when we make our next submission to government at the end of November this year. I think that's a huge step forward. The prospect of a single mega council responsible for over 1.2 million residents was something that was destined to end in failure, and I'm delighted that our warnings have been heeded and that that has been removed from our collective agenda. But moving beyond all of that, I do want to sound one note of warning this evening, because of course the danger in all of this is that the next few years become a race to the bottom, an exercise in how efficiently we can oversee the closure of this authority and how deeply our officers in particular could risk becoming lost in the bureaucracy of novating contracts and transferring service provision to a new unitary council. And for local government institutions, I fear that way of thinking is almost the default comfort zone. However, for me, and I believe for the majority of you on all sides of the chamber this evening, there's much more important work to be done, projects to deliver, provision to secure, town centres and whole neighbourhoods to regenerate, people to house, businesses to bolster, a creative sector to grow, and a legacy of localism and connectivity to our neighbourhoods to galvanise, strengthen and protect. So let's take this opportunity to reaffirm to those residents and those businesses those charities and community activists that we work with, those faith groups and community providers who make up the tapestry of this local area, that we are not in Hertsmere going to slip into that comfortable default position. Not only will business as usual continue, not only will we work assiduously to deliver what we've all promised for Hertsmere, not only will we work to protect and secure local well-being, not only will we grow our economy and fight for the core values of localism, but we will continue to be a council that aspires to deliver and invest in the kind of projects, the kind of innovation, and the kind of transformation that this borough rightly deserves. And that will always take priority over government or county-wide demands to file reports on structures, nuts and bolts and financial projections that, in my view, will ultimately probably only make a marginal difference to the eventual future outcomes of local government reorganisation around here. I say no to shifting the deck chairs on a Titanic, and yes to continued, bold aspirational leadership of the place that we're all proud to live in, to work in, and to play in. I wanted to pick up my comments in the written update on the LGA Corporate Peer Challenge. And in that regard, I'm really pleased to be able to come back to you this evening, since we last discussed this, and report some really significant progress in implementing the recommendations of the LGA Peer Challenge report. Members will recall that we received an overwhelmingly positive, in fact, a glowing 5-star report. And we've recently completed a process of externally facilitated joint work between the senior leadership team and the Cabinet. And I'd like to take this opportunity to thank Hilary Shade in particular and Liz Gore for their work in ensuring that that process moved forward smoothly and effectively. As a result of that, I can report to you this evening that we've now successfully made an appointment of a new Director of Place. This addition of a third corporate level director will address the clear view that came back from our staff and was reinforced by the LGA experts that we currently lack capacity, particularly at that corporate level. It'll also double down on our successes around the placemaking agenda, which the LGA were particularly keen to see us do. This new directorate will combine the two place-related functions of asset management and planning, something I promised to do 9 months ago. This will heavily increase the prospects for our bold regeneration plans in Boreham Wood and Potters Bar to deliver the results that we aspire to. As a result of this process, we've also expanded the Council's Management Board to include permanent, ongoing participation from all members of the senior leadership team. We've agreed a process for a new singular corporate plan to be completed by next February. This will replace the raft of different strategic priority documents accumulated over the course of the previous administration. And I'm not for a moment criticising them for taking strategic planning seriously. It's just that we were left in a situation where we have too many of these things, and that led to a lack of clarity, and I would argue, and indeed the LGA argued, a lack in direction. That document will sit side by side with the emerging local plan as the key inward and outward, respectively, facing statements of priority for this authority. We've also started to plan implementation of a central corporate programme delivery office in tandem with reviewing the effectiveness of scrutiny in our member panels, and we'll also be aligning our programme of meetings and decisions more closely with the organisational business cycle. Now, if some of that sounds a bit nuts and bolts, I make no apology, because we need to adapt our infrastructure into a more modern, agile environment to deliver real value for local people. We can't keep throwing all those buzzwords about effectiveness and agility around without actually doing something, and doing something radical about it. But critically, this is really all about our ability to shape the places in which we live and work, to shape Hertsmere into a place where vibrant towns, green spaces and close-knit communities come together, a place where we invest in homes, business and community life to build a greener, fairer and a more prosperous future, all while staying connected both to the energy of our London neighbours and the benefits of our more rural Hertfordshire partners. These changes will enable us to shape a future in which people from every generation will be proud to call Hertsmere home. So I'm delighted that we've not just initiated but started to deliver a process that will grow a borough-wide economy powered by community and delivered and driven by ambition, a process that will deliver safe, sustainable and successful communities, leveraging the strength that lies within our people and deeply within our places, and a process that will see us all working together for a greener, fairer borough, where families grow, where businesses thrive, and where nature is cherished. And don't let anybody tell you that those goals are mutually exclusive. Don't let anybody hold up banners in this chamber or elsewhere asserting that growth and green are competing agendas. Because let's come together and promote the politics of balance and compromise and moderation, not the politics of dogma, othering and polarisation, which is where too many people are trying to take that particular debate. I was pleased to recently have the opportunity to meet representatives of the residents of Stratford Gate in Potters Bar and hear more about the impact of the proliferation of HMO, houses of multiple occupation accommodation, in their particular area. Since then, more details have emerged, both in Potters Bar and Boreham Wood, showing a significant growing pattern of private companies exploiting the permitted development provisions introduced by a previous Conservative-led government. Now, my intention this evening isn't to comment on that one specific development in Stratford Gate, because in addition with meeting with myself, residents have met with housing portfolio holder, Councilor Matthews, and senior officers and received their perspective and advice on how to best deal with that particular scenario. However, it is clear to me that there is an urgency to set out a plan as to how we intend to address this issue at policy level and to articulate why it matters. So from the outset, I'm going to be really clear. I'm not against HMOs per se. I do believe that in the right numbers and in the appropriate places, they can and do provide important, affordable and flexible accommodation for people like students, key workers and many on low incomes. However, at the same time, it can't be right that private companies can buy up increasing number of houses in the same postcode area and often in the same small cluster of streets and sometimes in the very same street and effectively increase the number of occupants in those areas by 3 or 4 times without any opportunity whatsoever for residents or indeed the council itself. And let's be clear, those permitted development regulations place the same restrictions on us as they do on the residents, and we don't have the opportunity to properly discuss and object to those kind of plans in the traditional planning committee format. Now, in the case of Potters Bar in particular, it seems to me that the problem is approaching a point at which there is a serious risk of turning settled communities with a strong sense of cohesion and sense of community into what will become inevitably largely transient populations with much weaker, if any, real local ties. It's also very clear to me that in Potters Bar, these HMO developers or companies are buying up relatively cheaper or better value housing stock, often before it hits the general market. And ultimately, it's a real concern to me that this will disproportionately impact upon the chances poorer parts of the community have to get onto the housing ladder. Now, I've seen the proposals for what it won't surprise you to hear, I feel, is a somewhat extended and bureaucratic scrutiny exercise to bring forward recommendations. Now, I'm deeply appreciative of the work that Councillor Sullivan has done to highlight this particular problem. I'm also grateful to our MP Oliver Dowden for his ongoing and constructive engagement in the conversations that we have had on this issue. But I do think that the data shows we need to act with a degree of alacrity. A long scrutiny process with a task and finish group will not deliver speedy results, and it'll increase the likelihood of developers speeding up the rate at which they acquire potential HMO sites in the meantime, in fear of the potential outcomes. That's why tonight, with the support of my Cabinet colleagues, I'm declaring war on the inappropriate use of permitted development rights and the proliferation of HMOs in Potters Bar. Under instruction from myself and Councillor Oakley, our fantastic planning officers have already made huge strides in developing the case for an Article 4 direction to remove those permitted development rights in the areas concerned. And tonight, I'm announcing that we'll move ahead with the process to put such an Article 4 direction in place for those parts of Potters Bar, and we'll also lay the ground for a similar move in Boreham Wood should the data and evidence justify it. Now, this won't be a straightforward process, and central government, as many of you are aware, have the right to scrutinise our case and to intervene. But over the past year, they've approved a large number of similar decisions in similar circumstances across the country, and we'll leave no stone unturned and no political avenue unexplored in making our collective case to the government. Now, the work being undertaken by the scrutiny group will still be of huge value, and I don't dismiss it for a moment, because particularly the research imperatives that they have justified will really help us to solidify and to underpin the case. But on this fundamental decision, we have a plan, and we're pressing the green button here and now, tonight. This morning, we hosted here in Hertsmere a meeting of the county-wide Growth Board. That meeting agreed a threefold strategy for the county, which I played a role in writing: delivery of growth, growth policy formation, and advocacy for growth, all directed at producing a local growth plan over the next 2 years in advance of the advent of a combined strategic mayoral authority. But my position on this is that we can't wait for our new SCA and mayor. We've got to make sure that local growth plan is in place well before that. On the business front, our economic development team are doing excellent work, led by Leslie Crisp under the political leadership of Councillor Gray. Our new place function that I mentioned earlier will have growth at its core, and we must address head-on this fallacy that we see all over social media, that we hear from the party opposite, that we hear to a greater extreme from Reform UK, that there's some kind of binary choice between Greenbelt and growth. Those seeking to block the new data centre in Potters Bar boast at their meetings about how closely they're working with the Conservative group and its new leader. But let's be clear, these blockers aren't just blocking a building, they're blocking jobs, they're blocking hope, they're blocking economic security, they're blocking prosperity for local people and their families. And most of all, they're blocking our ability to place this area at the heart of the global AI economy. Now, politics is about choices. And when it comes to that kind of political choice, I'm not in the all or nothing camp. I'm in the camp that says, yeah, we can have our cake and eat it. I don't know whether that makes me a NIMBY, a YIMBY, or a bit of both. But if it makes me a YIMBY, I'm proud of it. And take note this evening, we are not letting up on the growth agenda that we have pursued since this administration took control of this council. I am proud that we will have a world-leading data centre at the heart of Hertsmere, dealing with the kind of consumption issues that Councillor Oakley outlined earlier, and creating huge opportunities for local residents. I wanted to update members on progress following our motion tabled by our Vorg champion, Councillor Nicholas, at our March meeting. As agreed, I wrote to the Home Secretary, our two MPs, Matt Termaine and Sir Oliver Dowden, and our Police and Crime Commissioner, Jonathan Ash-Edwards, asking them to support our calls in relation to the tragic triple murders of Carol, Hannah and Louise Hunt in Bushey last summer. requested that they support our calls to collate and publish data on crossbow-related offences and to consider new, tougher legislation for crossbows to prevent their misuse. I'm pleased to report that the Home Secretaries responded in full, agreeing to consider strengthening crossbow controls via a new toughened up licensing regime, and is currently reviewing consultation responses in this regard, and an announcement is expected shortly. The Home Secretaries also agreed to consider widening the reporting requirements in respect of crossbow-related crime as a specific data point in the Home Office annual data requirement from the police. I also received positive responses from our two MPs and the PCC. Thank Councillor Nicholas for all of her ongoing work with this campaign, and the work certainly doesn't stop here, and I look forward to continuing to work with her and all of you to advance this important all-party campaign. In a similar vein on crime and safety, I'm pleased to report another important success. Further to additional funding from the Labour government, we're already seeing the benefits here in Boreham Wood through Operation Hotspot, the ASB and crime operation in key designated trouble areas. Is something that was already working well, particularly in partnership between the police and our new uniformed community enforcement officers. Are we still calling them new? Or I think they're part of the landscape now, aren't they? The red vests are getting a little bit, in need of a clean-up or a refresh. This operated until recently along Boreham Wood Shenley Road High Street from Tesco up to the Point near the Real Studio 70 cinema. However, as members know, myself and a number of us, including Councillor Gray, have been pushing very hard for it to be extended across the full length of the High Street. It seemed slightly odd that you could get this enhanced response and visibility and so on that stopped after the bingo hall. But thanks to the additional funding, I'm delighted that the Chief Inspector has confirmed that with immediate effect, that operation has now been extended across the entirety of Boreham Wood High Street, right up to the junction with Allam Lane and slightly around the corner into Theobald Street, and is already delivering additional arrests and results. This is the kind of change you get from Labour governments and Labour-led administrations when it comes to resourcing law and order, when it comes to fighting antisocial behaviour. And it's happening now, it's happening here, and it's happening on the streets of Boreham Wood. Friends, it's been a slightly longer update than normal, for which I apologise. I know that a number of you noted the new format of the Leaders' Update in the council papers. Not all council papers have to be closely typed lists of text and bullet points, and I wanted to thank our communications team for their help in breaking a bit of new ground with this. Some people expressed concern that the new format would mean you couldn't ask questions on cabinet meetings, but we've slipped into the little grey box at the top a reference to the cabinet meetings that have taken place since I last reported, and the link to the webcast, which gives you complete freedom to ask questions about any of the business conducted by Cabinet. So that's my report, and I'm happy to address any questions once we have heard from the other group leaders.
Thanks, Councillor Newmark. How we are approaching 10 o'clock. So do you folks want for us to extend the time up to 10:30? Just raise your hands, I think. Okay, that's a... Now, I'll call upon Councillor Shenton as the deputy leader. You would like to add your voice?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I will say a few words, not as many, naturally. I think this is a very interesting and very positive report from the leader. Things are certainly moving. We did spend, as a cabinet, a lot of time recently with the senior management team looking at our peer challenge update and how we can squeeze even more work out of our limited amount of time. It's crucial that we have a very lean team of very dedicated staff, and we can't reasonably just ask them to do more. We have to ask them to work more effectively and not to do some things. And one of those, for instance, is we are looking at the number of times items come to these meetings. Do we really need them to go through 4 meetings? Well, probably not. With unitarisation, I think that is going to be a very big issue coming up. We've started having discussions as a group of leaders. We have yet to see complete agreement. It's very good, in my view, as the Leader of the Council mentioned, that we are not looking at a single authority for the whole county. From my point of view, in Bushy, particularly I represent Bushy, it's very important that one of the options which will pair us with Broxbourne is thrown out. We have no connection with Broxbourne and don't especially want to, nor they with us for that matter. But I think there's going to be a lot of work on unitarisation and working out what is the best, not just for the next few years, not where we think we might have political advantage at the moment, but where a council is going to run for at least another 50 years. I'm sure things will change over that time. I certainly won't be here to watch it all, but hopefully my children will be. I would like to also pay tribute to my predecessor, Councillor Richards. He took over Deputy Leader of the Council and Leader of our group when we'd suddenly moved from 2 councillors to 9. No, we had 2 actually. One of them had left the area, so we went from 2 to 9. And it's not a straightforward challenge. Paul managed that fantastically well. He kept us on board, kept us informed, and has been an absolutely excellent cabinet member for environmental health, for the green transition. And in our training course that we had last week, he demonstrated his profound understanding and knowledge of climate change and the ways that we need to mitigate it. I also welcome the appointment of a new Director of Place and the strategic significance that has in looking at how we can use our last 2 years of this council to actually put forward long-term permanent changes to generate activity, to generate economic growth, especially in the centre of Potters Bar and Boreham Wood. And I would also like to commend the work being done on violence against women and girls. My colleague Councillor Nicholas has been dogged and successful in moving this on, and it's great to see the council leader getting responses and getting positive responses from our local MPs and the PCC. I'll wrap up. You don't want to hear me talking anymore. I think it's a very positive report, and I look forward to more going on in the future. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Shenton. I believe in fair play. So therefore, I'll call upon Councillor Sullivan, and you have 23 minutes and 43 seconds.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As the new leader of the Conservative group, I'll be honest. It's nerve-wracking standing here in front of all of my peers in this new role. But I'm nervous because it matters, because this role is important for our residents, for accountability, and for the kind of politics we want to uphold. I'm proud to follow in the footsteps of Councillor Maurice Bright, whose leadership and dedication have left a lasting legacy. While I may not match his humour or extensive vocabulary, I bring to this role a deep passion for our borough, a genuine care for our residents, and a strong commitment to my team. My experience comes from the community. I know how people want to be heard, how they want to be represented, and how vital it is that this council reflects the diversity of those it serves. Effective opposition isn't about division or drama. It's about making sure decisions are tested, voices are included, and power is exercised with transparency and respect. Politics should belong to everyone. Representation matters. And I hope my leadership shows that these roles are open to women and to anyone who's ever questions whether they belong in this space. I look forward to working constructively, holding to account respectfully, and always keeping our community at the heart of what we do. One area of significant concern for residents is the communication around recycling and waste services. While we welcome the establishment of a cross-party task and finish group to support improvements, it is clear that more must be done. Residents should not have to search for basic information. They deserve clear, accessible and proactive communication from the Council. Current concerns include the incomplete food waste rollouts, confusion over what can be recycled, and an uptick in uncollected bins. We must quite literally get a grab on those bin handles and figure out how to make this service easier for residents and to deliver the high quality performance they deserve and what they pay for through their council tax. At June's Cabinet meeting, KPI showed recycling rates at 44% against target of 48%, and missed collections increasing in Q4. If we want these figures to improve, we must listen to feedback, address the issues, and I am confident that the recommendations of the Task and Finish Group will play a pivotal role in this. Councillor Newmark, thank you for your support and waging war on HMOs tonight. I'm a little frustrated that this decision could have been put forward sooner, weeks ago in fact, when the terms of reference of the Task and Finish Group were put forward. And it's not just about Article 4, it's about policy change and robustness in our planning policy that we need, especially with the upcoming Renters Reform Bill. And we also need to resource any decisions that we make. We need to make sure that our planning committee has capacity, that they have the funding that they need, and that they can truly enforce everything that we plan to deliver. And I hope that we are able to deliver and that we're not over-promising without true capacity this early on. I also want to acknowledge the tremendous amount of work that has gone into the recent LGA Peer Challenge review and the actions arising from it. This review is vital in shaping how we support all staff, residents and fellow members moving forward. I hope our leader will positively recognise the establishment of 3 task and finish scrutiny groups, one on communication, HMO licensing like we've heard, and social housing downsizing. All of these reflect real concerns on our doorsteps and we were strongly championed by our group. The Peer Challenge rightly highlighted the essential role of scrutiny in improving how we serve the public. We must remember the why and the journey to get in there. Are we truly supporting our teams? Do they understand the administration's priorities? And perhaps most importantly, are those priorities realistic and achievable? If at the next staff survey we are told problems persist, we must commit to listening without defensiveness and to not reframe or ignore the data that staff are brave enough to share. We look forward to welcoming the new Director of Place and seeing how this significant role will deliver for our borough through tangible results. But we cannot discuss the future of this council without addressing the local government spending review. And let's be frank, this review represents a fundamental failure to grasp the real pressures faced by boroughs like Hertsmere. We are semi-rural, high cost and growing, yet funding formulas ignore our context. We are left with fewer resources and higher burdens. Despite headline increases, once you strip away ring-fenced grants and one-off pots, this is real-term stagnation. And all the while, our costs, from staff and waste contracts to housing and fuel, continue to rise. This review also punishes prudence. Councils like Hertsmere that plan carefully, built reserves and invested wisely are penalised, while others in financial crisis are rewarded. Residents now face maximum council tax rises just to stand still, not to improve, just to survive. And what message does that send? The most visible failure is in housing. Temporary accommodation is swallowing our budgets. Families are being moved out of the area and the cost per placement is unsustainable. Yet this review provides no relief, no flexibility to borrow, no strategy to build, no recognition that we're on the front line. And while Whitehall champions levelling up, it continues to pick winners and losers behind closed doors. Hertsmere is not in favour with your Labour government, and our residents pay the price. This is not fair funding, it is short-termism at its worst. Every councillor in this chamber should be concerned. This isn't about party lines, this is about basic fairness. Hertsmere deserves funding that reflects our needs, respects our prudence and recognises our residents. This brings me to local government reform and devolution, an issue of growing concern to all in this chamber. We, as Hertsmere Conservatives, support devolution that empowers local communities. We do not support top-down reorganisation that strips decision-making from the people and places who understand their areas best. Unfortunately, Labour's proposed devolution bill is nothing short of centralisation in disguise. Handing over power to Angela Rayner in Whitehall, this is not community-led reform. It is control from the centre, and it risks dismantling neighbourhood planning, weakening local councillor roles, and removing decision-making far from the people it affects. And here in Hertfordshire, we are concerned that our Conservative voice, which represents a significant portion of residents, is not being proportionately heard in the discussions taking place between our borough leaders. This process must not be shaped by a small number of individuals behind closed doors. It must reflect all political groups, all districts and all communities, including ours. Any reform should be rooted in localism, transparency and consent. We must not allow vague promises on efficiency to mask what could be a power grab. We must ensure that Hertsmere's unique identity, shaped by its rich heritage, diverse communities and distinct local character, is protected and championed by the decision makers. We believe local communities should be empowered, not subjected to laws that restructure representation and increase costs to taxpayers. Residents want to know, will reform bring better services or just more bureaucracy? So I say to colleagues across the chamber, let us stand up for Hertsmere, let us demand fair funding, resist imposed reorganisation and speak loudly for the people we are here to represent. This is what real local leadership looks like. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Sullivan. Now I'll call on any other members to raise any question that they may have regarding the matters. Yeah, Councillor Butler.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, I'd just like to point out, as a person who works outside, I'd like to ask the leader and the portfolio holder if they will thank our staff in the waste team, the community enforcement team, the engineering team, and staff at John O'Connor's who work full PPE in the hot weathers outside. Can we please pass our thanks from this authority as our councillors to those men and women who are doing all those hard jobs out in the heat at the moment? Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, Councillor Kaza, please. Yeah. Then
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Myers.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councillor Newmark, if you recall, earlier today I did pose a question in my councillor questions, but sadly we didn't get time to approach that. So can I take this opportunity to ask, first of all, thank your response in my councillor question, but also ask, in light of your response, can a wider group of Borehamwood members be invited to that meeting that you referred to, as it pertains directly to South Borehamwood, and are there any implications to the whole town? Thank you.
Councillor Newmark, can you respond?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councillor Shenton, thank you for your words, and you absolutely agree on all counts. Councillor Sullivan, congratulations on your first leader's response speech as opposition group leader. I think when I gave my first speech as opposition group leader, I got one thank you email from your side and 2 standards complaints as a result. So I suspect that you'll probably do better than me in that regard. Look, I agree with your assertion and welcome your comments about the nature of effective opposition. And I do believe that under your leadership, we've seen real evidence of that, not just this evening, but over the past couple of months, and long may that continue. On waste, I think that it's evident we're in a transitional period where the new arrangements are bedding in. I think it is important that we give our officers the time and space to make the tweaks and changes that are required to optimise that service. I think you've heard detail from the relevant cabinet member earlier this evening. I think the point at which we sort of would seek to revisit this issue would be if those KPIs are not improving over a period of time. And I think that you're absolutely right to assert the role and function of scrutiny in holding people's legs to the fire over that particular issue. On HMOs, look, I think that that's a pretty rapid response if you look at the period over which this proliferation became clear, which is really, if you look at the data, just over a matter of a few months. I would like to have been able to make that announcement sooner. I think people around here know I'm quite impatient about making things happen and getting things done, but even I had to be a little bit patient. It's an incredibly complex process, and allow our officers to do some initial work, some initial research, and to at least indicate that we have got a fighting chance of actually achieving this. That was done ultra quickly. To be honest with you, they would probably have preferred that we gave them a little bit longer and a little bit more space. And look, as I said in my remarks, I don't mean for a moment to devalue the role of that scrutiny committee. You're absolutely right to say that it will have value. The task and finish groups planned research and its other planned activities will be the case that underpins our ability to move forward successfully on this. I'm pleased that there's 3 task and finish groups up and running. I'm appearing before one of them on communications, or specifically I think waste-related communications, later this week. So I'll reserve my judgment on that until that meeting has taken place. In terms of the others, I mean, yes, full support. This is what scrutiny is there to do. I would say 2 things. First of all, scrutiny councillors should be clear that their role isn't to get involved in the day-to-day running and operations of services. It's there to hold the administration and to some degree officers accountable to present alternatives and solutions, to work up policy, often before it gets to this chamber. And we should not see task and finish as the only mechanism for scrutiny. It's a crying shame that 2 years into this administration we still haven't had, I think, a single scrutiny report come to Cabinet for consideration, and I hope that this proliferation of task and finish groups will address that. On local government reorganisation, look, I have a great degree of sympathy with an awful lot of what you say, but I do throw the question back to you. This process is happening, and as I said at the devolution board the other night, what is your group's plan? What is your position? What are the options you want to see taken forward? I agree with you, the Conservative voice around the Hearts Leaders group has been hugely marginalised, and there's a reason for that, and it's called democracy. There's only one Conservative-led council left in the Hertfordshire County area, and somewhat surprisingly, I find that their position on this particular issue is actually more closely aligned with mine than many others around that table. Finally, on fair funding, look, I think that fundamentally I approach this in a different way to you. There is the impact upon Hertsmere that I'll come to briefly in a moment, but there is the fundamental principle behind this. And I take comfort in the fact that a Labour government will always act in the interests of local communities. And that's why they're taking action to fix the unfair funding formula that we inherited from the Tory government for once and for all. The Tories launched their fair funding review in 2016, and it recommended that the funding formula should be overhauled, and rightly so. But despite that, they abandoned the review in 2020 and left us with an outdated and unfair formula in place. And what's happening now is the radical rewiring of the system that we needed to see. Funding based on need, as Angela Rayner has promised repeatedly, £2 billion of funding to the places that need it most. A move away from Rishi Sunak's famous leaked speech during the leadership campaign, in which he boasted about taking money away from deprived areas like my ward in Boreham Wood and redirecting it to the leafy suburbs like Tunbridge Wells. So, look, yes, I will not deny that as it stands, the fair funding review doesn't deliver an optimal outcome for Hertsmere, and there's a reason for that. It's because we're in a slightly unique situation in that whilst the review is right to target deprivation, deprivation in Hertsmere isn't spread equally across the borough. So we slip through the system and slip through the nets, and whatever the colour of this government, from my own party or another party, I'll be the first to join you on the barricades, speaking up against that and making our case. But, you know, in terms of this year's settlement, the recovery grant allocation of funding has gone some way to address that loophole, as it were. The old system was unfair. It didn't work properly for any council. We now have a system that works properly for a large number of councils. I believe that the government's plans will make sure that cash goes directly into local schools and local roads to make real differences, and I think we'll see the benefits of that here. we will also benefit from moving away from the Tory government's Hunger Games approach to grants, where all of those small grants that we all had to compete for against different councils will be merged into much larger pots and become part of the core settlement. That will also save a fortune in bureaucracy and actually give more power to local authorities like our own. So yeah, it's a mixed bag, but let's come together, address the specific impact on this local authority and agree to disagree about the principles underpinning what I believe is a much fairer settlement than has ever been the case before. Councillor Butler's comments on thanking our staff, and you're absolutely right, out in this punishing heat in their sort of full PPE and so on. It's a thankless task, yet they have delivered. I don't think they get enough thanks from the public. It really pains me when I see some of the comments made about them as part of the ongoing disinformation campaign on social media. Those recycling workers are the unsung heroes of our staff complement, and I will be asking the Chief Executive to write to them tomorrow, reinforcing the praise that you've articulated for them this evening. Councillor Kazi, you're of course referring to the meeting that I announced in my written answer on the future of the Director's Arms site and the broader issue of medical provision in South Boreham Wood. I think it's an excellent idea, and I'll be very happy to take that on board and open that planned briefing meeting up to all councillors, in fact town and borough councillors from Boreham Wood and the recently elected county councillors, because the more that we can come together across the political groupings to fight for and deliver that provision, the better.
Thanks, Councillor Newmark. That was a long one. You know what I'm going to do? I'll flip sides. I'll give each side an equal opportunity. Yeah, first I'll go over to Councillor Cohen, then I will come over to, yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Before I ask my question, I'd like to take a brief moment to pay tribute to someone who has been both a colleague and a constant source of encouragement to me, Councillor Maurice Bright, MBE. As many of you know, Maurice served this borough with distinction as its longest-serving leader, but for me, it's much more personal. Maurice is my ward colleague, the person who encouraged me to enter local politics and continues to be a mentor and sounding board. His example of leadership, integrity and loyalty is one I strive to follow, and Hertsmere is better for his years of public service. Maurice received his MBE for his services to Hertsmere. It is likely that forever he will be the longest-serving leader of Hertsmere Borough Council.
Can I interject, please?
Yeah,
what's your question, please?
Yeah, I'm going to. Truly, Mr. Hertsmere, a great friend and colleague. Thank you, Maurice. Councillor Newmark, it is really and deeply disappointing that you have chosen to announce plans about an Article 4 direction on HMOs while cross-party task and finish scrutiny groups set up as a matter of urgency because of the reasons you said are actively planning to discuss this issue and reports within a few weeks. The whole purpose, as you kept telling me and drilling into us all and had a report done at great cost to the Council of scrutiny, is to develop sound, evidence-based policy. Our group plans in the next few days and weeks to assess the number of licensed HMOs, a figure the Council doesn't even know how many we have, to examine enforcement capabilities, the resource implications, which are major. We were told by officers they didn't have the resources or the finance to do much. And we were going to look into this and compare the cost and effectiveness of Article 4 powers for other authorities that have brought it in. We don't know if they are effective. To preempt this work with a political announcement is not only disrespectful to the scrutiny process, but undermines our credibility entirely. If scrutiny can simply be bypassed, what's the point of it?
Do you have a question, Councillor Cohen?
Councillor Newmark, do you agree that this is policy making by press release, not by evidence? And do you agree that our residents and our scrutiny team deserve better?
Yeah, okay, Councillor Myers, yeah, please. Okay, then,
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. There are certain elements, locally, and we've heard it parroted in this very chamber tonight, propagating a narrative that pits Potter's Bar against Boreham Wood and now Radlett, sowing division for political gain. For the record, could I ask the leader about the project he and I have been working on for many months with Boreham Wood Youth Football Club and the involvement of the not-for-profit community club, Potters Bar Town Football Club, not to mention projects in both Aberford and Meadow Park. Thank you.
Councillor Quilty, yeah. No, I'm going, one after, from there, that's right.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. When I came in tonight, I felt rather uneasy. And the reason why I felt uneasy is because I'd been allocated this position. This position was Rabbi Alan Plansy's position for a long number of years. And I thought I would just like to share with you one thing, because I'd known Alan for a long time. And that one thing was that Alan had a great love for music. And many of you know that he had a fine voice. He had a good voice. He was a good cantor, I think is the right word.
Councillor Quilty, can you come to
Yeah,
the question,
I will.
please?
But would the leader of the council agree with me? And does he know that Alan had another specialist musical acumen? And that was, and how many of you know this? He could play the bagpipes. And he could play the bagpipes quite well. Many a Burns night, he accompanied in the haggis into various events up and down the country.
Excuse me, you haven't come to any question, I think.
I have.
Maybe,
I've asked.
Yes,
I've
you
asked,
did ask, but you are going on with a statement.
Mr. Mayor, I've asked the leader. I've asked the leader.
Yes, you asked
was he aware and did he agree with me?
I've muted you. Yeah. Okay, Councillor, yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. While opposition members filibuster to meet to plan to draw up terms to discuss, will the leader please join me in congratulating Potters Bar Town Football Club in the fantastic work that they have undertaken in upgrading the Lantern Stadium following our £1 million still investment, and will you also join me in wishing them the best of luck in their upcoming game against Enfield Town this Saturday, 19th of July at 3 p.m. Thank you.
So much. Yes, Councillor Alan.
SEND, Special Needs Education, EHCPs, have been front page news recently, probably for the first time ever. I have a two-part question. Firstly, would the leader agree with me that while the system does need to change, we need to reassure parents that it'll be done in the right way, but secondly, you may be aware that our colleagues who now run Hertfordshire County Council are organising in the next few weeks a major SEND summit, bringing together parents, all stakeholders, educationists and teachers from across the county to get everyone together to work out a way forward for this most complex and difficult of challenges for local authorities. It's organised by our colleague Mark Watkin, the new Cabinet Member for Education. Would he join with me in wishing all the team best of luck for that very important event?
Thanks so much. What I'll do to enable Councillor Newmark to respond to your questions and other things, and let me give an answer. Councillor Newmark, you can say whatsoever your piece, and then I'll go over to Councillor Smith. And also...
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll be as brief as I can. Councillor Cohen, no, I don't agree with you at all. I think that in your sort of brief little frustrated rant, what you didn't tell people is, do you support it or not? Do you want to see an Article 4 direction or not? I mean, equivocation central or what? I appreciate you've set up a task and finish group, but given your track record as head of policy, as head of scrutiny, in which 2 years, not a single task and finish group has delivered a single report to Cabinet, you will excuse me for taking the view that we actually needed to ensure that some action happened here and that something got done. I'm not demeaning for a moment most of the work that you have set out that you plan to do, but you only published your work plan a couple of days ago, and frankly, this decision had already, effectively been teed up by that point. You plan, we do. By all means, go ahead with the scrutiny. That work will be important, and it will help us. But don't, at the same time, equivocate just because you find yourselves on the back foot and you're not actually really sure that you want us to go ahead with the policy that you've been advocating all over social media in recent weeks. This is an administration that plans, but it's an administration that's about delivery. We can't have scrutiny committees that deliver nothing for 2 years as a track record and rely on them as our only way to get important initiatives like that off the ground. Councillor Myers, absolutely, thank you for the opportunity. It was great to join you and other colleagues visiting the tournament at Bournemouth Youth Football Club a few weeks back, and rather than doing policy by press release or social media, as some might allege, we've been quietly but assiduously working to help support that volunteer-led group come forward with a SIL bid that they will sort of need approved in order to deliver absolutely mission-critical facilities. We've been quietly and effectively working with them, and I'm sure that when they are ready to bring that SIL bid forward with our support, it will be another layer in this wonderful matrix of sports provision, particularly for young and marginalised people, that we're delivering across our communities. Councillor Quilty, yes, absolutely, I do agree with you. And in a former life, when I worked as the Chief Rabbi's official spokesman, I had the dubious pleasure of attending various rabbinic social events and delegations to Israel and the United States. And I certainly saw the late Councillor Plansy letting his hair down, playing the bagpipes, and even wearing a kilt on more than one occasion, which is a sight that I shall never forget. Councillor Georgia, absolutely endorse your remarks around Potters Bar Town Football Club. I'm looking forward to the opening of their fantastic new community-centric facility. As Councillor Myers said, it's such a shame that some people out there have sought to use positive work and initiatives like that to try and play off one community against another. It's not a zero-sum game. We're delivering as an administration across the borough. I'm incredibly proud of that. Councillor Allen, absolutely agree with him around EHCPs. In fact, I was aware of the planned SEN Summit, and very happy to lend my congratulations, my support, and to ensure that we, as one of the borough and district councils, are doing anything we can to support this welcome change in approach from the absolute unmitigated failure of the Tory administration at the County Council to deliver the kind of SEN provision that local people around here deserve.
Thanks. Yeah, Councillor Gray.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you for your leader's report. Although very detailed, I understand you were trying to keep it as brief as possible. Obviously, it's very exciting times for Elstree Studios, celebrating their 100th centenary anniversary. I know the dates of that centenary anniversary are in flux, but also I wonder if you could just talk a little bit more about the exciting opportunities that MBS have brought to to Elstree Film Studios. Thank you.
Yeah, Councillor Clapper. Then I'll come over to...
Thank you. I'll be extremely brief. I won't have an opportunity to talk about Alan Plansy. I'll do that in full council. Or Morris, I shall say my words to you privately. I just really wanted to quickly pick up about waste. You call it a transition period. I mean, just to say, a transition period, I have entire villages within my area that are not having their rubbish collected. We have newly or retrained waste operatives that are being really overzealous when it comes to the bins. I have to say Ian Kershaw has been fantastic, really responding and getting on the case very quickly, but I just don't think it's been good enough. I think the comms have been pardon the pun, a bit rubbish. Putting the initial communication inside a waste bin that was delivered to residents that they weren't going to use until, significant amount of time later didn't really work. People are paying their council tax to have their bins collected, and that's just not happening. So what I would ask the leader is, please, can we have a bit more compassion, understanding and compromise for our residents, because they really seem to be struggling with the new arrangements and they would love their rubbish collected. Thank you.
Yeah. No, let me give her.
But I don't get an answer then. That will be answered.
Yeah. Let me give her an opportunity. Yeah.
On the work that he and Councillor Gray have undertaken with Link regarding the potential for a banking hub in Boreham Wood. I've recently reviewed access to cash points in and around our town, and I identified at least 15 available ATMs. I understand that the post office in the High Street is also installing one. However, misleading claims are currently being circulated by the Conservative
Can I interject? The time is up. Yeah, the time is up. Yeah. I mean, it's about 10:30. Except you guys, let me seek our. Excuse me. No, the time is up. It's about 10:30. I'm going to seek some advice from the legal team.
The motions that have been debated fall and can be.
Unfortunately, and there will be some deferment, and yeah, the meeting is closed now, and the next meeting is going to be the next time of the meeting. Let me ask you.
Mr. Mayor, just to say I'll be happy to provide a written response if you're not going to let me answer
the
the
next
questions.
meeting is the 17th of September. Then we'll carry on further. Okay, thanks. I wish you all well. A safe journey back home to you. They have to stand there while I leave the place. I think they have to stand there and wait while I leave the place.